2023. Planning Board is in session. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty is absent. The Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Present.
Board Member Foam.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Great. Can you please join for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any minutes?
Yes, we do.
Minutes, right?
We have lots of
She's
minutes.
Lots of
She's bringing
minutes.
copies of them.
Hang on. September 8th, to September 22nd, October 13th, and October 27th.
Okay, motion to approve them?
Approve.
Approved.
Motion.
Motion by George,
Second.
second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Those four are approved.
When do we do the?
Oh, and so we need to officially appoint secretary to the board. That is our function. And I would nominate Gloria again, and I think she's agreed to do it again, right? So do I have
second.
her support? Second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Gloria,
Like this-
secretary again. Do a great job. Okay, so Janice, NRP, number 1 on the work session.
Thank you.
We got, is she back?
Does anyone need a printed copy?
Yeah, I
She
think,
brought printed copies as well, so.
I brought one for everyone.
great, thanks.
you.
Thank you. Whoop,
Thanks. Thank you.
oh, you did front and back, okay.
Everyone wants one now?
Thank you.
Sure, and I also, Pete, if you don't mind, just grabbing one and passing it down.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so you see the, I fill out one of the aerials with the buildings on it, just
Oh.
in case you wanted to look at it. So we don't have Mike at the switch over there today. So we went over, Mike took the time to rewatch the work session
Oh, good.
and took the comments down, and then I refined them, and then, as you know, Craig had zoomed in at the time, he said he had some statistics.
Yeah,
He emailed them and I added them in. So, the whole first page is just, the project description. Then it gets into your comments. They're not necessarily in order that you said them, but we tried to make sort of
Logic-
macro
logic
down
out of it, yeah.
to make some sense out of it. So, I don't know if you want me to go by them one by one, or you want to comment on any of them.
the flow of it, when I read it, I thought, gee, we should move that with that, you
Okay.
know? And certainly the statistical stuff, like, and maybe we need to number these things as well.
Would you prefer numbers to bullets? I could do
Yeah,
that.
only because it's easier to say, well, what about point 1? So 1
Okay.
would be
One would be the first
the
bullet.
first planning board
And then
notes.
it's like sort of 1A, B, C,
Desi-
right?
That's
Should
all
work on it.
design, walkability. But this
I just printed
statistic,
9
given the
copies.
population of Coyote, do you
Sorry.
see?
Oh, well, we did.
Now we have more.
Well, we
Okay.
killed a lot of
Some
trees.
for everybody.
Janice, so the population, now that probably could hook in with the statistics that Craig just gave you, right?
8, so it's really 8. And 8 and 8A, you're saying.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Actually,
8, 9, 10, I'm numbering all the bullets, right? 12,
Yep.
13, 14, 15. 15 major bullets. You have some sub-bullets underneath it.
okay.
So I also think that the segmentation is something to move up.
That's almost like the first thing.
Yeah.
15, you
Which
said,
is,
right?
well, number 6, to avoid segmentation,
Yes,
okay? I think that really should move up.
okay.
Remember this.
So do you want to start with like the macro situation, which is density?
She did number
I think so.
And then just move down to, I'm sorry,
I think so.
okay.
Janice, I think
So
that, the
then-
segmentation, then the issue of the population, the 7.5 points easement.
But the actual verbiage of this is okay.
It
Yeah.
It
I think you
captures your
captured-
comments.
Yeah.
You captured
Yes.
it, yeah.
Great, so that's the first thing. And
Yeah.
now, we can, I don't wanna waste your time, I could try to do it myself, but if you just wanna quickly tell me, like, sort of 2, I thought came over before 6, because you're talking about, the design.
Mm-hmm,
And 3 is about right sizing. So maybe 3 is really 2, because it's about right sizing the proposed development, then you get into the actual design stuff.
right sizing, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then more specifically, the community garden playground comments.
Exactly.
I see. So I would say 3 becomes 1, right? Which is given the lack of walkability, public transportation, as well as number, blah, 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 right sizing.
Mm-hmm,
That's the first comment. Does that make sense? And then the second comment I would say is probably number 4, population, reduction in density comment. This is
Okay.
still sort of along the same lines as this
Mhm.
right sizing thing. There was many redundant comments. We tried to,
yeah, no,
Take
but
the
I think,
liberty
of
I think you've combed
melding
them all,
them.
right?
yeah,
Now, on that one, Janice, not to disagree with the recommendation here about proposing a reduced project. One of the points made was that they had not heard from the fire department, so they were, I think, ready to get back to us on that. So I don't know how that impacts this. And then the other comment was that, like, fire, ambulance, police all have different sectors, and it should be kind of proportional to looking at those various sectors as opposed to just the hamlet of Quiog, you know. But again, that's not to disagree with the recommendation of the board if everybody else is comfortable that that was kind of the net result.
Well, it could be added, could it not?
sure. I
Tom,
can add it to
just
number
add it.
4. We'll go back and re-review what you said about that, but it sounds like you're saying, are you talking about the proportionality among the town comment, or just in Quiog, that you think that those facilities are lacking, or are
Right. I
not
think-
able to serve this area, this proposed development? That's,
Right, when we talked about the population of Quiog, and then we were talking about, you know, the emergency services capacity, they're each slightly different jurisdictions, so I think it was, you can't compare them all to just the size of the hamlet. Some of them cover broader areas. That was, again, just a
Okay.
comment that I think was made. And as I said, I think the outstanding one that I noticed was that they'd not heard from the fire department.
okay.
So I don't want to speak for the fire department, but I think we should just make a note that a response from the fire department was needed.
Okay, so should get and incorporate into FEIS.
So then we have a
Um,
whole hunk on traffic, right?
Yeah. As an aside, by the way, which
Mhm.
is like kind of left field for one, if you can indulge me for 1 second, I thought of your issues with the secret process.
Mhm, yes.
And, there's something that you may want, this is, you're not the lead agency, whatever, this isn't about this, but generally, the FEIS is the lead agency's document, so you prepare or cause to prepare it, and the applicant typically prepares it, but there's nothing stopping you as a lead agency from getting a separate consultant to, because it becomes the lead agency's document.
Mm-hmm,
So just keep that in mind, that you don't have to do it the way we've been doing it. It is something that could
with the
be.
town board, you mean?
No, this is a town board's
Yeah.
action and they're going
Mhm.
with this way, but when you are the lead agency.
Considering our action.
Considering your issue, when you're a lead agency and you have a DEIS in front of you, the project sponsor completes a DEIS. The FEIS is the lead agency's document. You prepare or
Mhm.
cause to prepare. The cause to prepare has been construed to mean that the applicant prepares it, but it
Ah.
doesn't have to be that way.
Right, we can do it.
You could hire a
With a
consultant to
consultant
prepare
to
the
do it.
FEIS to respond to comments in a
That
way
sounds
that you
good.
feel acceptable. So
Okay.
I'm just
I like
offering
that.
that as
And the
a
applicant
potential
pays for
piece of
the-
advice.
No, the applicant doesn't pay for it.
Okay.
You don't repay for both. They don't pay for both. There's a review and/or prepare. They don't do both.
Well, I'll check
Mhm,
about
yeah.
that, but just so you know, there's
That's
that
good.
option, maybe.
I like
So
that
that-
process.
To this.
So then on the new action, we are the lead agency or the deciding agency?
No,
Doesn't
it has
have
nothing
to
to
do
do
with
with this.
Nothing to do with
I
this
mean, like a whole like hypothetical separate
If
She
there's-
project.
said,
If there's a project
on a
where
site
we
plan.
are leading.
Right.
Where
When the
project
site
you have
plan
lead
comes
agency.
in.
No,
Yep.
not this at all.
No.
Like
When a site
Because
plan
we're
comes
only
in.
say it's
involved
a
in-
site
Site
plan
plan.
or like a 50-lot subdivision.
Yeah.
You're the lead agency, it's a type 1 action, and you've decked it. You get a DEIS from the project sponsor. The FEIS is your
Is our
document,
document.
and therefore you can rewrite it, you can have a separate consultant write it for
Mhm.
you, or you can have the project sponsor write it. I mean, I've spent like 15 years rewriting FEISs
Mhm.
on behalf of the town, the project's,
Right,
the lead agency. So it becomes your document, so just keep
Okay,
that in
that's
mind.
good to
That's
know.
all I'm saying. I was, when I was thinking
Right.
about it, I'm like, we don't do it that way,
no,
but
but we
there's
have the
nothing in the
opportunity.
law that
to-
says you can't.
Right,
I'm just going back to what you sent us, and there's a whole paragraph about the density and percentages based on census data.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
in-
seeing that in here.
It's not in here.
And the
Mike?
Rutgers study was another thing that, a
Yeah, it's so
recommendation
funny
that the
because I was
town-
looking, I asked Mike to print this out for me and I don't see it on here.
Yeah,
is
I'm
he
just-
here?
No, it's not here.
No, but is he here? Mike,
Christine, the ones you printed, did they have it on that one, the one I sent you?
yes.
They're different. The one that Jackie
The one
gave
that I
me
printed
probably
out-
does, but the one you gave out is different than
I-
what Jackie has.
Yeah,
Maybe Mike got a previous version that wasn't that
I
didn't
don't know, but
save.
take a look at
Okay.
this. This is
I'm sorry.
printed.
The ones that
from-
Christine printed are the right ones.
And I printed that out
I don't
from
know
the,
what it did.
I don't know what
I think
happened.
that's
I just
what-
said to Mike before he
that's
came up
what
here, can you
Jackie
print
did.
it for
That's
me?
why I went back
it
to.
looked different, yeah.
I was just
Coming.
looking at it
Coming.
also, like, where is all that?
Coming,
You got the right
Yeah,
one.
so.
It should
Take one more over
be,
here.
one more.
it should be 4 pages.
You have it,
So
Janet?
just, Janice, so we're clear too, you made number 3, number 1, number 4, number 2. Are you, did you change yet 1 and
Let's
previously
look at the one
and 2?
again and
Okay,
renumber
Let's
it.
look
start it
at-
all over.
let's
Page
start.
1. Given the lack of walkability is number 1 right now. 2, 3. Then we have A, B, C, D. 4. Any
Wait a minute,
indents or
you're talking
A's?
to yourself. So,
Talking to myself?
well, no, but I'm saying, you said you wanted to start at 1.
No,
But now you're
we're just
numbering. We're just
renumbering
numbering.
right now. But I'm saying where it's indented bullets, consider those A, B, C, D as part of the,
Mm-hmm.
We now have 17.
So, 1, 2, 3.
do you have one more copy of it? The
Four.
one I'm talking about?
7, 8, 9.
You know, it would be helpful too, just to like, since you're categorizing these,
Mhm.
to have like a bold heading, like say, number 17 is
Traffic.
traffic dot, these are the comments kind of thing, because then we
Okay.
can
Okay, so we
review
have
it like a staff
7,
report.
17
17.
main bullets and several with some sub ABCs.
Right.
So 1 is given the, and what did we say we were gonna swap that out with?
I thought we were gonna take number, starting with like the big macro comments, which is sort of number 5.
According to the 2010 census.
Yeah,
Yes.
sort of a density
Yeah,
comment.
so we'll make that number 1,
So 5,
becomes 1.
okay.
And then under that is, should we put the school stuff?
Yes, 10 becomes number 2. 10 and 11?
Yes, yeah. So 2 and 3, right?
Yes,
2 and 3. 10 becomes 2, 11 becomes 3.
yep. So you've got census, which is your macro comment,
Mhm.
school, which is your next 2 comments. Then, I think the services one might be,
We're talking about right sizing.
yeah, where was that?
It's actually number 1 now.
It's number 3. Oh, yeah,
Will become,
Well-
number 1
number 1 becomes number 4.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we also have a couple macro comments on 14 and 15 about balancing housing throughout the town. Should that
Yeah,
Yes.
move up to 4 and 5 instead, or
yeah.
15 and 16? Sorry, 14 and 15,
So maybe that's 5 and 6.
4 and 5.
Is number 1 4 still or no?
I don't know.
Number 1 is 4, so this
Okay.
has got to be 5 and 6.
Okay.
The 14 is 5,
And 15 is 6.
Okay. I'm following you.
and then we can get into the right sizing and the,
And where do we put segmentation in?
I think that's part of the subdivision thing.
Okay,
Um,
that makes
so the
sense.
next one could be.
So number 2 is a subdivision comment. I can add that under number 3 and envelop it as a sub-comment, because it's a
Okay.
subdivision comment.
The site layout,
Yeah, PRD open space area
you want to put that
falls
under
under the
3?
subdivision comment. So 2 could become a E, or, you know,
So you're saying number 3 could become 7,
yes,
and 2 goes to 7E or 7,
or maybe A.
7E?
I think it would be A,
Okay,
because that's,
2 becomes 7A, and then,
okay, so there is no more 2, so now there's only 16 overall comments, right? Because it's sub, okay, good. Then 7 should be the next one. I mean, number 7, which would be 8, right? That's your segmentation comment. And not, 8 should be 9, because it's following through on, still talking about that site plan. Then maybe 4 should become 10, or maybe
4 could become
4 becomes
become 8.
8. Yeah, 4 becomes 8,
8.
7 becomes 9, and 8 becomes 10.
It's like,
Right.
let me know when you're done.
Can we,
Do we
Yeah,
have,
no, I'm with you, I'm with you.
I hope you are, 'cause
I'm with you,
do we
yeah.
have to approve
Yeah, I'm with
this
you.
right today?
I gave
If
it-
you can, I
you,
mean,
can you
we should do
redo
it.
it?
I
and just-
can.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
move it around and,
I think, I agree with you, Jackie, then if we have to refer to a number and a letter in the future, it's fine, and then condensing the comments into categories that are bolded out under
Yeah.
those numbers, and then
Yeah.
ittle be very easy. But I think they,
Yeah, so the
all
rest
the
of them, I
information's
think you
captured,
can
it just
probably
has to
do
be
it.
organized.
Okay, I can organize it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you
And then
can,
we
you
can
want
But
to
the language is-
adopt it, but you know that all the substantive
Yes.
comments are there, and I'll fix it.
absolutely.
Okay?
You can watch this again.
Yeah,
can watch
Michael,
this
watch it again.
I dare him to try and do it.
I
So
think I
we're
got
throwing away this other thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other one is wrong. I'm
The other
sorry
one
about
is
that.
incorrect,
I don't
okay.
know what happened.
All right.
If he messed this up. Okay, so
Jackie.
not voting?
Don't you
Put
do
it
it.
back on?
Don't let Mike do this.
No, I will, I'll do it.
You do,
So,
because
well,
you
I wrote
understand it.
anyway,
So
yeah.
shall we vote on it?
Yes.
The substantive
think
comments,
everything's
it's just
in
the
there.
organization.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, the voting to approve the NRP referral to the town board. Motion by George, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you, Janice.
All it was a reformat.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
just
so
struggles
much.
of, so thank you,
Thanks.
Janice. You shepherded, please.
Thanks.
Take care.
Okay, so 1 is done.
I was so lost.
Who's representing the Old Country Road, Spionk Riverhead Road? That was initiated from this board. I think Claire is doing that.
Yeah. John, is Claire out there? Can you see if she's out there?
Yeah, let me see. Claire? Oh, you're not Claire.
Okay. Okay, she's not.
No?
I guess that's it now.
Thank you. Okay, 9/11 is off the agenda. We're waiting for the traffic report. And we need planners.
Yeah.
Oh, and 3 and 4 duplicate, there's 2. Oh, maybe not.
No, but you know, 3 is really 2, and 4 is number 1.
How many figures have I put
No,
out?
but I'm saying, we actually have, this is the agenda now?
These 2 are off. They're duplicates and
So we
they're
did the
off.
referral.
So we have 3 and 4 is duplicated.
It's the same,
It's the
yeah,
same.
They're not
Because they're
duplicated,
both.
but they're different parts.
but they're both off.
Yes,
So we're waiting for the,
we're waiting for bodies.
there's Claire. Claire, the resolution, Old Country Road, Spionk Riverhead Road.
Catherine. Thank you.
And I think coastal vision is also off, number 6.
Coastal Vision's on this.
No, it's not.
No, it's, I don't think it
It's
is.
not-
No, it's not off.
Coastal vision is
No,
off.
it's not off.
Anthony just told me it was off.
He's
He just told
presenting.
me it was, he didn't know, but he got confirmation, it's on the agenda.
It is on coastal,
Coastal.
okay.
So, my next one would be number 2, and, this was a little while ago. We were looking at a bunch of site plans along, Spionk River Head Road, and the board, Craig first, but the board agreed that maybe there should be like some type of study along Spionk River Head Road. I did intend to put an aerial, but I can get the GIS up. So we can take a look at this. So we've had a number of site plans, I'll just put the aerial on too, along this area of Spionk River Head Road. And I started putting a resolution together, but we can talk about the language. But probably this has also gotten some feedback because of, this is a bypass now. People are coming directly from West Hampton, are using this instead of going to East Quogue, because it backs up in East Quogue now too, so. So the way I wrote it, and help me with the language, is to recommendation from the planning board because of the added site plans that occurred on this road to study this intersection. Maybe it might be appropriate to have a stop sign going along Old Country Road, but I'm not quite sure if you want to do any specific instructions or just ask them if they want to study the intersection.
I think from my perspective, and having been involved in many of these over the years, I think what you're probably looking at is the safety of the intersection. That's generally the driver for any intersection review is safety, and adequate capacity.
Okay.
And the other comment, and I can't read what you have up on the screen there, but I
Okay.
think, as I think we talked about at one of the meetings, this is a county road intersecting a town road. Now, isn't
51.
Spionk Riverhead
I
Road?
don't think it is, but
No?
let me just put the legend on, because it should.
Tom, can you explain what you mean by capacity? Because whenever we hear a traffic engineer talk to us, they say
Well, that
it's
gets-
not going to add traffic.
Right, right.
So
And
how do you define-
I mean, I think you really are focusing on safety of an intersection is number one. And I think you're right, level of service is really what you're talking about.
Okay.
Is it backing up a lot? Again, this is, what we see the traffic engineers always present.
Okay.
How much is it backing up? Because like this study or anything you do is, what are you gonna do with the information? What's the results? Always nice to know things, but what are you gonna do with it? So, if it is a county road, and I could be wrong about
It
that.
isn't.
I
I
just
thought
was
so too.
one county, one town.
Okay.
I'm forgetting which one's which.
There's 2 jurisdictions then.
I
Anything
don't
would be
see
Spionk River
that.
Road.
It would be yellow if it was a county road.
Oh, yeah?
So it's both, and if it was county, it would actually have the CR number right next to it.
What I was gonna say is, if it was an intersection of a county and a town, generally the county would take the lead on it. So I would have said, ask the county to do it, and if the county, won't do it, then the town do it. If it's a town-on-town road, then obviously it falls on our, our engineering or municipal works, traffic safety office
So-
to probably hire a consultant to
Yeah,
look at it.
so maybe safety and level of service.
Right.
Because I think that we've seen where they say it's a D, it's a level service D, which basically means you just sit in traffic, I think.
Right, what's acceptable in a report and what's acceptable when you're sitting there are two different things, maybe.
Yes.
But generally, the intersection review deals with, you know, as I said, safety.
Is it called intersection review too? Is that a
I
term?
think that's really what we're talking about, is the
Okay.
review of the intersection. Craig, you brought this up
I guess,
originally.
Yeah.
would, you know, sightlines be considered part of a review of an intersection? I would imagine it would, right?
Sure.
Right, those are the
Safety.
things you look to see, do you need to change them, or
Mhm.
can you change them?
Yeah,
What
there's most
about-
certainly a sightline issue, and everybody cheats
Right.
to make their turn. So everybody's creeping up, and then into the intersection. And that's where you lose your sightlines, and that's where the danger comes from.
Right, so it's, you know, I mean, they would look at, you know, number of accidents
The
and
number
the
of the
type of
accident
accidents.
reports, yeah.
That's generally what you'd look at. You'd look
Mhm.
at the lines of sight.
Mhm.
I don't know, we have to, you know, the wait times, the
Mhm.
level of service.
Is there any stop sign there at all now?
There's a stop
Stop sign.
sign,
From Old River Road onto Old Country.
that's correct, yeah.
Spionk Riverhead Road.
Spionk River.
Coming
right.
down to the
Coming
end.
down. Yeah.
East-west, there's no there's no stop sign.
Mhm.
There is one at the intersection coming down.
Right.
And, you know, don't want to get too far out, but generally, your primary road,
Is
you
east-west.
don't put stop signs on the primary
right,
road.
no.
You try to put the stop signs on the intersection road.
So the legislative intent for all of this primarily would be safety, right? I mean,
Right,
and to ensure a flow of traffic. I mean,
right.
because what we're never looking at in any of these is the consistent flow of traffic, because there is no flow of traffic anymore, right? It's like at a standstill.
Right.
But I thought it is, I've never really seen it sort of stands up, but it's definitely a lot of traffic on Old Country Road and quite a bit coming off. So there's everybody kind of creeping out to try and sometimes making a turn while traffic's still coming and trying to gauge it. You know, it's a sort of intersection where ideally a circle is probably the best thing to have rather than stop signs.
And the left turn from Old Country onto Spionk Riverhead, there's a turning lane there.
Is a turning
And-
lane,
and
yeah.
people generally cheat that a little bit,
Yeah.
which actually makes people going around them
Mm.
push out a little more.
Right.
There are a number of things. Again, it's all sightline.
It's,
Um,
but it sounds mostly like safety.
Oh, it's absolutely
Safety,
safety.
sightline, accident.
So, yeah, I think, you know, number of intersections,
Yeah.
line of sight, potential,
I mean, it's a rare day that it backs up there any more than like 4 or 5 cars, but. you know,
potential improvements. I mean, if you did see a lot of left turning accidents, then you know you have a problem.
Yeah, I actually avoid making the lefts out of there because, again, it's a round curve. People come very fast around that curve, and again, you're cheating the sight line, so now you're sticking out, and you have the cars
Right.
coming this way at a
Oh,
rapid rate of
yeah.
speed
Well,
Right.
if you can avoid a left turn,
at any time.
period.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So
yeah.
Claire, you're looking for, like, language, the intersection review, it sounds like is the term. And then things to look for within that would be the sight lines, the accident history, you know,
Right.
load on the
Backup.
road, and, you know, just any improvement recommendations that could be made to improve safety,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're asking the town board to seek? Is that right?
So they would do the study, Claire? It has to be initiated from the town board?
Right, I know, I think the town, since a certain person left, town engineer is the head of like things like with traffic. So I will CC him on this, and obviously
Right.
they're town roads, and so the highway department would be integral to that too. So we'll copy them both on this, but it will be addressed to the town board, that's what I envision.
Okay, is there a traffic engineer being hired?
That I don't know.
It's in the budget.
It's
Oh,
in
it
the
is?
budget.
I've been told,
Oh,
you know,
good.
I mean, there were
Yeah.
2 openings in the two openings for engineers in the engineering department right now, so.
We've been talking about it, Tom, for how many years?
Tom wasn't gray then.
Exactly. Exactly. But, you know, you're right, it would go to the town engineer, he'd probably be the one to decide whether it could be done in-house. My opinion, an intersection like this might be a little too complex to be done in-house, no reflection on our town engineer, but, or whether, in fact, he would recommend to the town board that they hire an outside consultant to look at it. I think that would probably be his call.
Right, so I think you're just asking for the study to happen.
Yeah.
For those various reasons
Yeah.
and those
Yeah.
ingredients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot more activity with site plans, and that means more
Right.
use,
Mhm.
and
That's very important.
Do you think it's, I mean, I've said that there's been a number of commercial site plans. I could even give a number within the last 5
Yeah.
years if you want.
I think that's valuable,
Um,
because that goes to the heart of why all of this is happening.
Okay,
And
Because there's more
continuing,
development
you
there.
know, background traffic growth,
okay, oh,
Every-
good,
you
good.
know.
Tom
Do
has
you
the right
like that
words.
wording better than like the increase the commute? Because that's just a general, my idea, but maybe continuing background growth is better than that. so.
Kind of one of the buzzwords, buzz phrases.
Okay, there you go.
Every road's becoming a back road now if it
Yes.
goes more than, if it goes between two other roads.
Continuing background growth, right?
Traffic,
In
traffic
traffic.
volume.
I like that, okay. I'm gonna work on this for the next meeting, I just wanna get the wording correctly, you know, I don't wanna rush, you know, to get it
Sure.
together, but, if anybody thinks of anything in the meantime, just email me, okay?
Yeah, great.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Do we wanna do my items?
You are,
How we doing? I don't have many.
you are number 9, Guy Rigler.
Number 9, Guy Riegler, yeah, we can do that. Tim's here. Tim, you wanna come up?
It's page 22 in the packet. You
I-
can come here, it's easier for the microphones, and if you have papers.
Tim, the first order of business, no more pen clicking. No more, it's so
Is that
distracting.
I think it makes me do it
We have a
too.
clicker.
Okay,
I don't like it either.
thank you.
Very sensitive. For the record, Timothy S. McCully, 41 Meeting House Lane, Southampton.
Can Claire just give us a little
Yeah,
background
I'll do a
review?
brief, but I'll do the brief overview. So back in, I think it was March of last year, Jackie was the planner on this, but the planning board adopted an amendment to the covenant that allowed access to this parcel. Can you see that? I don't, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. This parcel from this current common access way, because the owner of this parcel also owned this, and then the rights to go over this common driveway, right, Tim?
Yes.
Rather than going over this convoluted, non-opens road here. So that was the preference, and the planning board agreed at the end of the day, but one of the conditions of approval, and it's in the packet, the wording was,
Acknowledgement, permission, or signature?
Consent of two
Yeah.
owners.
Number 3.
and the two owners in question are the two owners on the either side of the common driveway on the northern part. And then I'll let Tim pick up the story from here, if that's acceptable.
Okay, so after you approved that in March, I drew up easements for everybody to sign. On 87, which is to the west, the long one on the west, they're in extensive litigation, including fraudulent transfer, and I don't know what all the deal is with it, but obviously he can't sign anything that would be binding. So we went to the title company, and what we've done, now, the other lot on the easterly, northeasterly lot, they don't have any title to this road. They just have an easement to come around so they can access their property.
Wait,
So-
no, I'm confused about that.
Okay.
So the upper right, where there's a house, they access their property how?
On the left, the same place that everybody
On the
uses, I
left?
think, I'm
They
not sure.
do have an easement, but they don't own,
They
what
don't-
Tim's
They don't
saying,
own
is they
it.
own the lands where the easement is occurring. They don't own the land itself. They just have an easement over somewhat, actually
Okay,
Tim's
maybe
applicant's
just
Yeah.
property.
The property. So this is the property I'm talking about. They don't have any title to this road.
Mhm.
And this lot that's in litigation has a short piece here. So we wanted to sell this lot. I came to you back, we had a public hearing in January. In March, you approved the resolution. That resolution included adding these people to the easement. I tried to do that. I drew all the easements. I sent them to them. As obviously, because of the title work, we determined that he can't give us anything binding. So we moved all of the easement area onto my client's properties. The title company accepted that, and the easement was filed. So I'm here to ask that we not have to include these two lots.
So Tim,
And-
where does 95 take the access from right now?
It comes down here, but it only has an easement. He's got a driveway that comes in here.
Okay.
Actually, he could access off the cul-de-sac, but this is the way they do it. And he has a small easement that comes to his driveway.
Because the
here.
aerial almost shows like like a dirt road towards that property to the rear.
The
On,
what?
on 95, right? The aerial,
Like a dirt road on the east side, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's to serve this person here, I believe.
Oh, that's a separate lot?
yeah,
Oh,
that's a
just-
little
So there are 4
askew.
lots in this?
There's a driveway coming down to the top lot
Fine.
here, but not to this lot.
4 lots for, yes, for
It's
this.
a 4-lot,
For
4-lot
this
subdivision.
easement.
It was a
Yeah.
four-lot subdivision.
Okay.
A declaration was approved. That declaration allows you to change it without a public hearing, but we did have a public hearing. It's the standard language, a majority plus one, but sometimes when you do these driveways like that, you'll say that it can't be used for any other property. That declaration does not include that language. So when I was here in October, I explained everything to you. The board said they didn't have a problem with it, but you wanted council's input.
Basically, that condition number 3 was based on the circumstance of the easement being involving those 2 other properties, right?
Yes.
And now that's not the case, because it's all on the other property. So
Right,
we're
we
just
moved it.
eliminating that condition
Yes.
3 because the intention of it no longer exists,
Exactly.
right? Okay, got it.
So do the easements have to be rewritten, Christine?
I don't
or-
think no, I think the condition has to be changed. They filed the easement without that. It didn't talk about that.
I'm sorry?
The easement itself didn't have the language in there that you're looking to change. It's the condition that did.
No. The easement did not. Okay, it was just an easement for 106.
So the action we're looking at is just remove that condition from the approval?
Yes, that's what I'm asking for, so that we can, continue to use this and not have to open over 1,000 feet of land in here with all kinds of turns and
And you
whatever. This
reviewed
is
the,
still their legal access. They have it out
If he filed the easements and he gave them through planning and they came to me before, I reviewed them before they're recorded.
You did, so you've reviewed them, Christine, and you're okay with
I would
it?
assume that I reviewed them. I sat with him and I went through this. I don't remember going through the easement with you.
We did not give you the easement
Okay, so
before
then-
we recorded it because we had to close on 106, and I got into all kinds of problems with these 2 owners, and we were closing.
So if there's a problem.
And the easement itself across the properties was
so
already
you
approved
should
by
review
the
that
board.
before
So
we
if
approve.
there's
Well,
a problem,
action.
you guys can move on the condition, but if there's a problem with the easement, you're gonna have to come back.
I would say that I would not be comfortable without you looking at this
Okay.
first.
I
you
looked
know?
at this whole thing, I just didn't see the easements.
Well, that's
'Cause I
the
didn't know
key
they filed them
thing,
without going through
without
plan.
reviewing,
You
yeah.
saw the easement.
You just said I didn't.
Yeah, I think that's what you just said.
You gave it to Claire.
I said, if it came through planning and I approved it, then I okayed it for recording.
Okay.
If yours, but then, I don't remember this one specifically. If you say that you said you recorded it without me seeing it, then I didn't see it.
But then I gave it to you afterwards.
I'd have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I don't
why
have a problem with what you're suggesting in terms of the condition. There's no legal issue there, and if the condition has nothing to do with the covenant, I don't have a problem with that either. But I gotta see them.
Why don't we just make it subject to approval from the town attorney?
Okay,
I would be comfortable with
Right,
that.
then we
yeah,
don't have to
okay,
come back.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
If you can do that, that's
Claire,
fine by me. I mean, that's always a condition anyway.
Could you just show on the screen, because I really can't see
Yeah.
what Tim's doing there,
Uh-huh.
what exactly, what we were gonna do and now what.
So the original easement, and it may be, the original access was partially on other people's properties.
Mhm.
So they have now removed it to be only on, and I can make this a
Their own
finding,
property.
on the property that is controlled by the applicants.
Which is 95, you referred to as
Yeah,
95.
95 and 87. And then
So 87 is out.
87 is out. My client owns 89, this, and he sold 106. But, and also, I don't know, is it showing up there? There was an illegal subdivision of this lot by Rigler.
Which one, the 95?
And that's where we get the 93 and 91 and 93 being one parcel. When Jackie Fenlon discovered that, she said, you have to rejoin this. I did that. So that's done. Now, it hasn't been redone with a new tax map because I didn't want to do that and complicate what I'm doing here. But as soon as this is all settled, then I'm going to do a confirmation deed and give it to the assessor, and he'll get a new tax map showing it back the way it was originally done.
So
Sounds
put
pretty
that in the
complicated.
conditions too.
Sorry?
So put that in the conditions too.
Well, it's done.
Yeah,
I
sure,
did
done.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
I did it already.
But that
So
just seems so,
All
like,
right.
much more cleaner access and best to avoid those two northern lots altogether
That's the whole
anyhow.
purpose of it, not to open up that whole road on the side. And this board agreed to that, and that's how I acted.
Yeah.
And
So,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
so it's subject to,
So this driveway
Review.
then, that cuts across
Yep.
lot 91,
yeah, it
9/11.
comes down and comes across to the house on 106. Instead of them opening up all of this, all the way up here, all the way down, was the whole idea.
and your applicant owns that property where the road is going across?
Everything, yes.
So I think in theory, we agree, but we're not going to approve it until till council reviews it.
But can you approve it subject to that?
It's entirely up to you. I've sat with Tim a number of times,
On this?
yeah. So,
I'm comfortable
I'd
with
be
it.
okay with
You're
doing it,
comfortable
subject
with
to,
it?
yeah, subject to Christine's approval of
Okay.
of the easement being on that one property.
On the way it's drawn, yes. Just because I have to tell you, to be forthright with the board, my client has an escrow agreement, and I'm on a deadline on that escrow agreement, and there's a substantial amount of money that's gonna be forfeited if I don't get something from the board.
yeah, so what they're entertaining right now, Chairwoman has said that they would do it subject to ultimate approval of the document, so I just have to make sure I have
Yeah,
everything
you-
that I need. You can come in tomorrow if you want, and
No
I'll go through it
problem.
with you for Monday.
Okay.
You have a copy, right, of the easement?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you another copy.
I don't know what I
I'll give
have.
you another copy and another map.
Yeah, I have to be able to.
Okay.
You did submit a number of documents, so I did
Okay.
have to file on this.
All right, you don't need to look for it, I'll get you a new copy.
Sounds good.
And the covenant, I need to see the covenant.
Now, what do you want me to do as far as the declaration goes?
Give it to Claire and they'll send it to me to review the
The amended
covenants.
one?
Yes.
The
Okay,
amended covenant, right?
okay.
Well, you're not amending a covenant, you're
No.
amending a condition, you're not amending. a
Oh, the
covenant.
declaration, you want to see everything. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I will give you another package. No, I have no problem doing that.
Okay, so we're going to approve this pending approval from
Subject to-
council,
Yeah.
subject to, and I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by
I'll second.
George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, suspension, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, my next item is,
830 Country Road 39,
Yeah, this is
formerly Bellringer.
to set the maintenance funds, for the project. This is the former Bellringer. which is adjacent to,
The gas
Speedway,
station.
and actually between the gas station and, the plaza with, Hampton Bottle and such. So they built the cross-access in between, which is great.
Good.
It
What did they
works.
do with the sign? Anything?
Nothing, and it was pretty silent on the sign, like they're leaving it at this time. It doesn't really make any sense. But
No, not,
it's not attractive, and it
No.
does lack sight distances, but it was, they were entitled to it, so they kept it. You know, I did take a special look at that when I was at the site.
yeah. I haven't been, I mean, I went there when the application was just starting, so.
But they did a good job to the building, it's all in order, and I'm recommending
Do we have
a
any
maintenance bond, yes. 1/3 the amount would be $3,600.
maintenance bond, right?
Yep.
Okay. Motion to approve that maintenance
Motion.
bond by Gloria, second by
Second.
Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And then my next one is number 14, Botanic Beverage.
Oh, right, they want to add that shed in there, right?
They actually, no, it's a,
The
change of
building.
use in the back. And because it is a wholesale business use, it requires a special exception. And so there's no building going on
Oh,
here.
it's used now for bottle returns, and they want to change it to plywood?
Actually, it was a pool business.
Pool business.
So this is, if everybody knows, this is Peconic Beverage in the front with the wine store in the front, and then Peconic Beverage is the second use. The whole back was used for a pool company, and when you change to a wholesale business, where they're going to plywood, let me just read this. Plywood and molding business, you have to have a special exception approval and review from the planning board in order to change the CO. So, no construction, but we will be reviewing where they have the outdoor storage and the parking for the property. So there'll be this one-step special exception review, and a public hearing is required. So we have all the basic information. I have floor plans for the plans and the site plan with the parking. So I'm recommending scheduling a public hearing on this project.
For
I think I have it for
February
February
26th,
23rd.
23rd?
Just let me check my resolution here.
How many do we have? Because we were playing games last meeting with the February meeting. Jeff is shaking his head.
This would be the 5th.
5th?
This would be the 5th.
So it's up to you. Do you think it's too full?
I don't know what the others are,
March 9th has 1, and then 3 shortly after that.
so we can move this to March 1, maybe?
Yeah, March 9th.
March 9th.
March 9th. Now, Claire, just repeat the reasoning for this. It's going from a retail use to a wholesale use.
It's going from a pool business
Which
to,
is-
which
which
is
is-
special exception also, but
Okay.
a different use. So when you change the use, when the town board chose what would be special exception, they felt like a business which would have possibly cutting and things like that would want the extra review from the planning board prior to an issuance of a CO.
I'm thinking that the parking / traffic might, as I'm anticipating big trucks as opposed to a pool truck,
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
much smaller.
100%. We want to ask that question and ask them what you anticipate, trucks smaller or bigger, or
Because
you'll want to ask
I'm
that
just
question.
thinking Riverhead Lumber, those gigantic trucks with the
Yeah.
spiders on the
Bringing
back.
plywood
Yeah.
and wood and lumber.
Yeah,
Plus outdoor storage.
yes.
Right, and that,
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know, but wholesale plywood and molding, I'm sure that's a big business out here, but it's not becoming a home improvement center. It's
No,
not-
no.
They're not selling tools,
No,
they're
we're not retail, wholesale. Definitely is going to be written right there, wholesale.
Which building is it, Claire? Is it the little one between the
It's
two
rear-
large ones?
No, it's the rear one.
large one.
Yeah, it's the rear large one. The little one in between is that ice machine.
Right, so there are circulation constraints there,
Mm-hmm.
and parking.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I mean, they've got to get those substantive plywood sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there'll be some review on this. You know, you're not looking at the building itself or redoing the building, but there's a couple factors, and we'll go through the special exception standards, they help with the review.
Yeah, like, is there really enough room to do this?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's,
depends on the scope of the, you know, business.
yeah.
So that's why you ask how many employees you have, where's your trucks going, how big are your trucks, and what's your circulation?
Mhm.
That would be all valid questions.
That's all residential down to the south, right? Those
So
individual
this is, to the south, is the nursing center, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
homes? Below that on your screen, are those individual homes?
And then these are,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
this
okay.
is the residential to the south.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
And what's that Tuckahoe, that,
This
Yeah.
is the proposed Liberty Garden.
oh, that's
Yeah.
a Liberty,
Yeah.
right.
That's Liberty?
I was just gonna say, this is,
Mhm,
that's,
that's it.
Yeah, so the very little corner in here is the village, the tiniest corner of this piece of property. So we will
So
do a
that's
referral.
the village line that runs the
Yeah,
immediate across
just in
there?
the
Oh, wow.
corner
Okay.
there, so you can see
Wow.
that. That's the village line.
mhm.
Okay. So I'm recommending for the March 9th meeting.
Yep.
Any questions?
Okay, motion?
Motion?
Motion by Gloria, second by
Second.
Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you. And then my next one is Ocean View Park. We did talk about this last week. I'm sorry, at the last meeting. And the board was comfortable with it, but Jackie, you weren't here, so do you want me to just explain it a
Please,
little bit?
please, is this an old file map?
It is an old file map,
Oh,
and let me bring up a plan I have for this. So we can discuss it intelligently. Actually, I even start with the area.
Anthony, so Coastal is back on?
Yeah, he's not gonna be here today.
Okay.
So this is an old file map. This is, I'll show you in a second, but these 4 lots were created as development parcels. And the question that Joe Gaza is asking or requesting is an amendment of the map so that this portion of the map would not be an access road anymore. And let me show you the map that's in question so you can see what I'm talking about. So was it a map that was approved back in 1980? And these are the 2 lots that would have access in between as proposed. This is just the border of this development section. So everything south of it was proposed at the time to be sending parcels, and that is actually what happens. Is turned out most of these lots are controlled by the town or the county, and their development rights have been transferred off. So everything below this is actually owned by Mr. Gaza, the entire parcel. This portion of the lot will be developed, but everything else is owned by the town or county, except for this one little lot here, which I understand from Dave Wilcox is having its development rights stripped off of it, and it also will be donated to the town in the future. So I got an email to that effect.
That's the Gentry property?
That's the Gentry property, so that is the last piece. So it is, there's no anticipation that this will ever be used for access for development. It doesn't make any sense at this point, especially since everything else is
Yeah.
open space.
Refresh my memory that at this time, there's alternative access, right?
There
To-
is 2, and so I wrote the resolution, and I do have it, that there's 2 other ways. One is that we would leave this portion, if this was gonna be developed, of course, I've gotten information since,
Yeah.
that this portion on the, adjacent to this parcel would not be abandoned unless you reviewed it and approved it. which we could probably even take that condition out at this point.
Right.
Or this would continue to have access, and this is along, the map doesn't show it, but the name is Broadway. So this access will continue to access all parcels to the south, so.
And this is access sort of off of Watermill Town?
It is access, yes, it is, yep, exactly.
So why would Broadway continue to be open if those parcels that are sending parcels
To give
are
access.
not going to be
It's-
developed?
Just access even from the town perspective, you know, if you want to access the county and town land, which are open space, you can walk along those pathways.
Yeah, it's not,
the
it's not
beau-
that, it's not that it's gonna be open and developed, but it's
Right.
just an access way if you need
It's
to
just an
get around
access
it.
way.
And it also serves as an access to Gentry's parcel, should he not strip it.
Right, exactly. It's anticipated too, but, you know, obviously.
So Joe wants to develop that parcel, and what about the parcel to the east of that? The
So
large, long parcel?
this long one, he owns. He owns this one, and this is where he wants to abandon it. So I wrote the resolution that's it partially, to permit the access road between the parcels to be partially abandoned, adjacent to parcel 7.
Can you go back to the development map?
Sure.
Claire?
Mhm. So it would be this access that would no longer be part of this development map.
I remember when we had the discussion, we were gonna allow him to to abandon half of the road and leave the other half for access to Gentry's property down below, but now we're saying he can do the entire thing, or?
Well, he doesn't control N, or 8. It's another property owner. But we could eliminate this condition of 8 having to keep its half. Because A, we'd always have Broadway, which is an option. And B, as I said, this is town or county land, and there's other ways to get to that parcel.
And what is the value of abandoning that?
He
road?
gets that extra,
Square footage?
Square footage.
Fractional of development rights and square
yes,
footage.
to put his together the 200,000 at the end of the day.
Okay.
Do you know the acreage of each parcel? approximately?
These parcels, oh yeah, I can look them up. Generally speaking, the one that he controls here is 2.6 acres. I'm sorry?
It's okay.
I think that was Charles.
That's 2.6, and the other one, which he doesn't control, Mitzi Ko owns it, and that is approximately 1 acre.
The one in the
44,000
red
square feet.
outline is his, though, isn't it?
It isn't.
It
It's
is not.
it's the Jason property owner.
Do we need her approval to abandon?
No, what you're doing is just amending the map to say this is no longer an access road. Because this map, right, that you approved in 1980, which is a long time ago, 43 years ago, thought that this access might be needed in the future. You didn't know how this map would further be developed.
So Broadway then is the access to her lot?
A Broadway could be, the access to her lot is along this road, which, oh man, what does that say? Terrace Avenue. So there is access to be built, and that is actually a common driveway agreement that's been approved by the town engineer and you. So her access to her parcel is through this Terrace Avenue. So she would not need this for access. And in all estimation, she'd abandon her half too. And if we can leave it an open issue, or we can acknowledge that she can abandon her half too, and then we would just do it administratively in the future.
Okay.
That's better.
Seems good.
Yeah, I think so too.
So the action would be that we're allowing half of that road between 7 and 8 to be abandoned, and incorporated into 7.
The action would be to modify the development section to permit the access road to be partially abandoned. I could say fully abandoned, by each parcel on either side.
And if 7 and 8 can each get half of that
to the
roadway, right?
Center line.
Mhm.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Okay. I think it's fine. As the whole south is now preserved in the map.
Okay, so is it the town's responsibility to amend this map, or does he amend it?
Your responsibility to amend the map, and it
Okay.
is just to, again, recognize that this is not an access, and then they would be permitted to abandon. on either
And this
side.
protects all the sending parcels.
Mhm.
Great.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
good.
So the change would be to be fully abandoned, and then condition number 1 would come off.
Just make it clear that it's going half and half, not
Yeah.
just to him.
So the language changes where?
Mhm. So, the B
Here.
here resolved, and
Yep.
I'll put the resolution up for you.
What page is it, Claire, do you know?
44.
Yes,
Page 44
44.
in the packet.
So this is the background. I can just say the third whereas, I'll say that there is an alternative access, and I'll say it's along Broadway. So I'll take the reference to Ocean View Parkway off. And I can also further say it is the intention of that one parcel to be a development parcel. Do you want me to make a finding to that effect?
Mhm.
Okay. I can write this up for next time. Do you guys feel
Okay.
more comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I'd like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get more time, and then I'll make
Okay.
sure Joe is fine with the language too.
Rewrite.
Good, thank you.
Great.
We'll
Okay.
do that. And then, do I have anything else?
Doesn't look like.
I
Oh,
think
no,
you're
Hamlet
free.
of Pasanelli.
That is off the agenda. We snuck 2 other signatures on, so acknowledge those now or at the end.
So Pasanelli is off.
Yes.
And we can acknowledge signatures for Campbell Ranch
Mhm.
and for Firestar Holding. So those 2 signatures are acknowledged.
Yes, they've been signed.
They've been signed by our secretary.
Great.
Our newly minted secretary.
Reminted.
Yeah.
Recast and reminted. Okay, thank you, Claire. Let's jump to Jeff. You want to,
Jeff do his stuff.
okay. So you're number 5, Jeff, the Christopher Mead.
Afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
So Christopher Mead, I have revised draft results for that. We received comments from the Ag Advisory Committee a little late, so I'll give you.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes, we received Ag Advisory comments a little late, so they didn't make the packet. So I'll give you the comments in the new draft reso.
Thank you.
So the original application was for a wetlands construction permit to construct a 3,155 square foot agricultural storage barn. Bring this up.
Do we have a map up there?
Yes. So this was the original approved site plan for the storage barn. They've completely fully built the storage barn with some modifications. So the applicant made a request to the planning board for said modifications. Those modifications include
Can you read that whereas the planning board received a request, because that gives us some history.
Yes, I'll read it for you if I have a copy, actually. I'll leave a copy for myself.
Oh, there's a few extra here, Jeff.
And if you wanted to as well, you could jump to page 2 where the Ag Advisory Committee gave their comments. But yeah, whereas the construction permit, an application for Christopher Mead was conditionally approved by the planning board on July 26, 2018. Whereas the construction permit, wetlands permit proposed to construct an agricultural storage barn on a 12.219 acre agricultural reserve parcel located within R80 zoning district, Ag Overlay District, New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, in close proximity to town regulated wetlands situated on 17 Mecox Bay Lane, the hamlet of Watermill.
It's this whereas. that
He just
I'm
want,
supposed
she
to-
wanted just the third one.
I just wanted
right?
the next one, whereas.
Oh, the
planning
next
board
one, I'm
received-
sorry. Whereas the planning board received a request on November 10th, 2022 to modify the approval to allow for the relocation of the sanitary system 344 feet from the delineated wetlands boundary line, where 230 feet was proposed. The as-built location of the barn is currently at 88.3 feet, where 90 feet was proposed. 50% of the parking lot to remain unimproved, with the other half to be maintained as gravel. Installation of an irrigation well to the northeast of the agricultural barn, installation of a paddock fence along the driveway. The as-built agricultural barn is located 96.6 feet from the delineated wetlands boundary, where 198 feet was proposed, as shown on the site plan entitled map of part of agricultural reserve area subdivision map of Wheaton Bay Estates for Christopher Mead, prepared by Squires and Holden.
Jeff,
So,
Yep.
so did they go to the ZBA for these adjustments?
No, they did not go to the ZBA for these
So they just
adjustments.
built this,
Correct. So they had this original approval. When built, they noticed the changes in the distance from the property line and distance from wetlands. They also included the paddock fence off the entrance of the driveway.
so
I'll
these
go to
all
the-
deviated from the approved site plan that we,
Correct.
And the ag advisory notes really indicate there's no agricultural use here.
At all.
And
okay.
So I must remark-
problematic
Let's go
on
to-
an ag reserve.
let's
They
look
made
at-
the same statements on the original approval, so they are consistent on that front. The applicant was going to attempt to send someone, Wayne. Awesome. Want to come up?
Sure, I'm available to answer any questions you have. But as Jeff indicated, these are changes that occurred after.
Wayne,
the
just give us your name
Sure.
and,
For the record, Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Morse, Simpson and Bruin for the applicant. As Jeff indicated, when they did the as-built survey, they determined what we would consider very minor deviations. They all still comply to zoning. So 88.3 versus 90 from just the one corner. The building being 196.6 rather than 198. As you know, the setback is 125 feet from wetlands. Jurisdiction is 200 feet, so it's not an issue, but this is things they found after construction. With respect to, they prefer not to improve the entire parking area, and they want to leave half of it as dirt. That's what they had. They realized that they had an irrigation well in there and thought that they could get approval to use that well for their domestic purposes as they might need for the bathroom or otherwise in the barn, but the health department said, no, you have to extend a water line down the entire driveway, which they did. And they did, based on some design issues, they did relocate the septic system, which was, you don't have the original, but it was to the, on that diagram, left of the barn, and now it was located to more the top of the barn, which is, the condition make it better from, it's further away from the wetlands as well. For those reasons, so they finished it, and they are working with the farmer to get things into production. They just finished the barn.
Which agricultural use are they planning there?
They have a variety of things, fruit trees, which have been planted, and to my knowledge. Those are the apple trees. Right, and then other row crops have been through the last few years. I believe Harry Ludlow has been the farmer on the property. So, to that question, it has been undertaking, but it's been a slow progress, and this is, again, this is 4 years ago when you approved the site plan, and we're now here trying to get the certificate of compliance for the barn. But it was part of our office, as well as the applicant, realizing these minor changes were different, and the fact that the 2-year time period, we had asked and applied for the extension, paid the fee, and asking you to approve the amended site plan accordingly.
Wayne, what is the response to the Ag Advisory's
I
comment?
just expressed that. Harry Ludlow has been farming the property?
Harry Ludlow's farming his property?
Yes. There's fruit trees planted, and there's been other row crops. It's not 100% of the property, but it's been undertaken in slow sections, so to speak, on the property.
Did the Ag Advisory know that, the time they made
I
these
don't know what the Ag
comments?
Advisory was given information on or not. I think probably all
Their
they
letter
sent was
was-
the plans, so.
Um,
But originally, it was one of those, when the first application is the farming had not just taken place. If you recall, this was a property that was left open and fallow, and our client actually went in and removed all the successional growth that was taking place, large cedar trees, and to get this back into agricultural production. So there was some time that was needed to get that in place. We had to deal with neighbors, some of which wanted all the trees to remain, and some didn't want farming in their backyard, some wanted some screening. We also found some of their fences, encroaching on our property and them dumping debris on our property as well. So there was an enormous effort on our client's part to get this to a point where they can get it in agricultural production. They engaged Harry Ludlow, who farms nearby as well, to farm this property, and he's slowly getting that into production.
When did Harry Ludlow start farming?
Probably 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah, as soon as,
Do you
so
have
they
an
had to get,
aerial of this property?
they had to get the property cleared, and
So
that's been
2018.
taking place over the last 5 or 6 years, so.
I mean, I'd be in favor of going with the Ag Advisory Committee's recommendations, which shouldn't be any problem, because if, the property is being farmed in good faith, there's obviously some doubt about that amongst the Ag Advisory Committee, but it sounds like you're moving forward in the right direction, so that, before any additional permissions are granted, that the barn be inspected and found to be consistent with agricultural use, and then it could be approved. That, if there's a doubt about it, then a look could be taken once it's in production, and then that would eliminate any doubt, and it could be approved at that time.
And would this be code enforcement's responsibility to go out every year, or who would inspect it?
Right, how does that work?
It would be a first that we would, make that judgment or go out there. We just inspect empty buildings and then,
So they want to build a barn, is this?
It's already built.
It's
It's
built,
built.
is that the barn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Did we cite the location for
Yes.
this barn?
You approved this in 2018. This is a reapproval with these,
With the modifications, right?
just these modifications, which are minor in nature.
No.
Well, does it seem reasonable?
well, it's minor
that-
in nature when an ag reserve isn't considered, and the way that the Ag Advisory Committee is saying is that the changes that were made, although the septic was moved away from the wetlands, which seems to be a good idea, it also, and the placement of the well was inconsistent with agricultural use. So what is our recourse to protect the integrity of an agricultural easement, I guess is my main question.
Right, yeah.
We would get a call.
If that's in
somebody felt-
question.
If somebody felt that that easement was being violated, they would call the town attorney's office or code enforcement. We would send somebody out there and look to enforce it.
Okay. What is the enforcement
It
mechanism?
depends on the nature of what is not being adhered to. But I mean, you could if it's in dereliction of your approved site plan, then that's one of the things. They'd be in dereliction of their site plan.
How
depending
is
on
it
what the easement
enforced
says.
if what they're saying is, that the permitted agricultural use as defined in New York Agriculture and Markets Law 301 is what's allowed on the ag easement? How is that enforced?
That's just we have that in everything, so every bit of farming. So if they're doing anything outside of what is an accepted bona fide agricultural use, then they're in degradation of their easement. And we would either be in justice court or Supreme Court, depending on the nature of what's going on.
Well, it seems that we should ask for a confirmation that there is actually agriculture going on if the advisory
Represented that.
board is saying that they don't.
I just did. I just did.
Can Harry Ludlow submit something?
There was evidence in the record to that effect when you originally approved the site plan.
And now
So what
things
you're
have
doing
changed.
is you have an advisory committee giving an opinion. And
Well, the
the
ag-
question is, you just heard from council as to if there's a violation. So the easement, as you know, allows open and fallow in landscaped areas as approved by this board, which, if you go out there today, is probably consistent with that. The question is there an obligation to farm under the easement and on any agricultural land? And other than the current recent easements that the town has acquired, which we'll call enhanced development rights,
Right.
where there's an affirmative requirement to farm over a certain period of time. It isn't like any one day, it could be over a year or two. If you're not farming, then the town has the right. If you don't have it farmed, they can inquire and determine. If you don't, then they can get a tenant for you to come farm. And that's only in those enhanced development rights.
Yeah, and that's.
In
what
all
it's
the other
doing.
easements, there's no obligation to farm the property, and for many years, this property was not farmed.
That's good to know. Thank
It
you.
was left to be, grow and successional growth, and it was only this current owner coming in and saying, wait a minute, I want to farm, I farm this, and they took out all the cedar trees and relocated and did everything, and trying to get this to a point, and to engage the farmer. And it's sort of the chicken and the egg. This is an isolated farm parcel. There's no base of operation for the farmer to have his tools, his equipment, or whatever. And that's what the premise was here, is they were gonna occupy, here's the barn, start with fruit trees, which I believe you can see perhaps on that.
There's hundreds of apple trees planted.
Oh, I'm sorry, you've been speaking.
So anyway,
And rightly so, you can come up and just identify yourself.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so
You
much.
can sit here too if you like.
You can sit here.
Claire, while they're coming up, what, is it pretty common for an applicant to come back with a revised site plan for us to approve, after having done those changes?
They change things all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
But I mean, it sounds like the construction of the building just ended up pushing it a foot or two closer. So if, and I'm a little bit confused, the language of that third whereas, where if you go back to the site, the 88.3 feet, is that from the property boundary of that corner?
So this
Or-
corner right here, so I'll show you on the.
Yeah, if you go back to the
site
site
plan
plan,
for you.
maybe just to clarify
I'll
that.
show you the
I'm
as-built
sorry to
site
jump
plan.
back a little bit,
Oh,
but
no, no
the
worries.
language on that is a little bit confusing.
All right, so if you see here, the as-built site plan right here, 88.3.
Okay, but the
From the
way that, the
corner.
way that is written, it kind of, my first reading was that 88.3 feet was from the wetland boundary also.
No.
So maybe just the way that whereas
I'll
is
revise
written.
I'll definitely revise it.
And where was the original location of the septic system supposed to be? No, where was it initially
The original
approved?
location was
here.
to the left of the barn. Directly to the left of the barn.
And
I have,
And now it's where?
and now it's located,
Oh, so it's over there, okay.
correct.
And what was the
So-
reason for the,
So further away from the wetlands.
what was
as
the reason for the
stated.
change? And you just have to identify
Oh, I'm sorry.
yourself, just for the record.
David Harris, contractor on the job. I built the barn.
So can you just let us know what the reason was for the change in the location of the septic system?
This is
They
a-
just wanted to get it farther away from the house. So we put it further away
From
the
the house
wetlands
is-
and everything.
Where's
So
the
there's a
house?
For the house or the barn?
There's a house
Is it a
here.
house?
And where's the
That's what-
wetland?
Well, there's a house.
This is the original approval.
There's a house
Oh,
over here.
okay.
So this
So that's the
is,
original
that's
approval
the
there,
original
of the back
Yes.
of the barn.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, let me just finish, if you don't mind, Matt. So, that, where it was originally proposed, in the back of the barn, is that prime ag soils as well?
yes,
Do you know?
Yes.
yes.
So, I mean, I'm asking that question because the Ag Advisory Committee says, they moved it into an area and encumbered a prime ag soil, but the fact is that even where it was originally proposed was also prime ag soil. So it's one, wherever it was proposed or actually built, it's still prime ag soil that was being,
And that's for the
Isolated.
house that's on the property?
No, it's
No,
just
no,
for
the
the
barn,
barn.
just the barn. It's just a toilet and a sink. in that one.
No, if you look at this site plan, this is the one stamped, approved, signed. Where's the approval? Here's the approval. I don't know if you can see it,
Yeah.
but this is where the septic was. There was a house. It's tight on that lot because of wetland setbacks, and I think they encountered issues with the neighbor about
So
can
the
we
house-
relocate it?
The house
So
is-
that was probably the issue.
The house has
It's an
nothing.
adjoining neighbor.
Has nothing to
Okay,
do with the,
all right,
right.
that's
Right.
where
It's
I
not
was,
their house.
that's what I was
Yeah.
confused.
There's no house on this property
Right.
at all.
But you know, just for the record, the Ag Advisory is an important committee. It's an important committee to this board, and we value what they say. So when we get a series of comments from them, as they are here, it's our obligation to take a look at them.
I understand.
They're the experienced farmers. We've had this before where people have pretended to farm and they go and they put in a couple of fruit trees and, you know, but they want like a 5,000 square foot barn
Yeah.
for a non-farming operation.
There are hundreds of trees on the property, though, apple trees at this point.
Okay, so Harry Ludlow has been farming this now for
Correct.
since 2018?
4 years almost. The first 2
Okay.
years it was rye and wheat.
Mhm.
Now we went to apple trees, and we're gonna expand on that.
What's being stored in the barn?
The
Tractor?
tractors, it's just a fork, it's a fork bay garage,
Mhm.
and then there's a little office and storage, you know.
Are
plastic.
it's being used right now?
It's being used now?
No, we haven't done anything yet, because we're not a CO yet.
So Chris Mead owns it, he's leased it to Harry Ludlow.
I'm not sure, if the
Yes.
term- is it leased? Okay, I don't want.
Could we
yes.
review the lease?
I don't think it's a handshake.
I don't think. it's-
What's the date on that, Ariel?
I don't think there's anything.
The area,
right.
it's
I've asked for that.
October
Yeah,
2022.
I mean,
It's
that's
pretty
our
recent.
It's pretty
obligation
recent,
too.
pretty
is
Definitely this year.
If there's a question,
Most farmers
like,
would say
it's
that.
not, you know, and now, it's funny because like, when we ask questions, it's really
Well, I
a
mean,
question, it's not an
you have to-
accusation. So
No, it's
the
fine.
conversation, like,
Did you
for us,
fill
we
out
have to
that-
do our due
fill out that
diligence
area and zoom
to
in,
answer
if you
the
don't mind?
questions
Just,
that
Yeah,
are
that's
being
fine.
asked here. So if there's not a lease, then an inspection of what's going on there, or, you know, to
And what's
see
the
it
date
for
of it?
yourself, or have
This
a
one's
lease.
this one's 2022.
October 2022, so you're saying there are now hundreds of trees?
Because I
Of
don't see
apple
any there
trees?
now.
Yes.
Maybe the leaves are all down, we can't see
Yeah,
them?
Would this
They're
have been
everywhere.
April? Was this April 22?
April?
Do you want to go point to up there where
I'm
it
not-
is?
Does it have a date?
But you
Okay,
can't
do
really
you
point
know
to
the
it.
month? I don't know if we do.
Are they in
So
the,
these are all trees?
Spring.
Looks like it looks
All
like
those-
grass lawn there, on the
the-
left and right side of that are all trees.
Right here?
Up further this way, I'm sorry, right along that path, on each side of that little walking path, it looks like.
Oh, to the back of the barn.
Yeah, on the side of the barn, the left side of the barn.
Look like
There's like a little
railroad
walkway
tracks.
there, there's trees on both sides. There's trees on both sides of that. See those trees?
Oh, it's not on
Those
the
are
bottom of
trees.
it.
Yeah, and then there's more spread out
Casting
around
shadows
everywhere
or
else,
something.
yeah.
And
I'll have
what-
to see on that.
and what is Ludlow's intention? What is he planting?
We have apples right now. We harvested apples 2 years now
But
already.
this is on the back part of the barn, not, so nothing's been planted, you know, kind of towards the side or front of the barn.
Yeah, we're gonna plan on planting more, you know.
And you say you do not have a C of O, therefore you have nothing inside of the barn at this time?
There's nothing inside of the barn, no.
Which would answer the question whether there's no compelling agricultural use or even planned use?
Evidence,
Or
yeah.
evidence of?
Yeah,
So,
You have plans in your file of what was contemplated 40 years ago of how this property, their farm plan,
Right.
you know, but you're hearing more information, you know, now, what is planned in the near future. And, you know, there are trees that have been planted and installed, but
So what is our action here? To
That's what I was wondering.
reapprove, yeah, what are we doing?
Consider the modification request.
So the
for
bond is,
think
the
it's-
bond is
So
about
you want a
1 foot.
modification, you want the site plan revised and approved by this board?
So they
is
can
that-
get a CO.
So you can get a CO?
correct.
So the Ag Committee says, we suggest that before any additional permission is granted, blah, 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 the interior of the barn is inspected on an annual basis. Well, you're here for permission
Yeah, so-
today.
Yes.
I mean,
I'd say
Clear
why,
inspected by
can,
who?
do we need
I
an
mean-
inspection, I guess?
That's the thing, we've
You're
never
not
done
gonna,
it
it sounds like you're not gonna see anything.
Right.
Like, I don't know what you're looking for.
Well, that's,
like,
I
could
think the
Jeff
other
go there
part of
with a
that
member of the Ag Advisory Committee so that any of their doubts are dismissed because they see Harry Ludlow there, he explains what he plans to do, and then we've done our due diligence of addressing the comments that they have by going to the site together, and then,
I mean, there's nothing preventing you from going to the site, it sounds as though we're gonna go to the site and see nothing, so I don't know what that's
well, he's saying
going
there's hundreds of apple trees there.
Well, there's trees there.
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
can,
there-
But you
well, we
can
can
then-
inspect, we can inspect them
Is
and
there
see,
equipment?
so that's
There's
easy.
nothing in the
There's
barn?
no equipment yet, no.
So what is the
We use
equipment
it-
being?
He brings his equipment over when he needs it. We are gonna plan on buying equipment to put in the barn, but until we're CO'd, we're not, you know.
Well, I think that some response to the Ag Advisory Committee is warranted, and can you draft a letter to say that Harry Ludlow is farming this property, and that it has been planted, and as soon as a CO happens, we'll fill up the barn with whatever we need to fill it up with, to at least respond to them. I mean, they've taken effort to,
Is there an affirmative easement on this?
4
To
point.
do
Yeah,
it?
it's-
To do,
this was
no,
a
I know there's
cluster
an
subdivision.
easement, I know,
No,
but there's
not
not
an
an
affirmative.
affirmative farming easement.
Before we proceed, I'd like to ask council a question. Does this board have the authority to send out a planner on an annual basis to
No,
look at the?
there's no, because once you give the permission, you're
You're done.
done your action,
Yeah.
and everybody moves on with their lives. If there's a reason to believe that they're a violation of something you've said, then that's another story, and we take it up elsewhere, not here.
Yeah, yeah, I was just speaking to the recommendation.
No, no.
Well, that's what I was saying, it's just one time, you know, you do site visits all the time, right? Go there, meet Harry Ludlow, walk the space, talk to him, get confirmation within your reasonable belief that they are and will be farming there, and then we've addressed the issues. That, I mean,
Well, you're talking about doing that today, not on an annual basis.
right,
Right.
doing it
Today.
one
Yeah.
time,
Today.
so that you have a clear understanding of what's there, not an aerial that might be out of date. Get eyes on the property, so that you can see, and bring a member of the Ag Advisory Committee with you if that's something that they want to do. And meet the farmer, right?
I thought the planning
It's
board
easy.
had to come and inspect anyway.
No.
The staff.
Well, the staff does.
We
I'm
inspect
sorry,
it,
okay. I
we
thought that
take,
was-
Yeah,
Sorry
like
about
we'll
that.
rely
Okay.
on their.
and we go through it,
Yeah.
and we see that everything lines up.
Okay,
That's what
yeah.
we do.
But
So we
right
will
now,
do
it's
that.
like your eyes are seeing one thing, his eyes haven't seen it yet, so, like, maybe that's the action, to
So
go and
what
see.
can we, have you had some correspondence with the Ag Advisory Board?
Not more than the comments that are in the resolution, no.
Well, we don't typically then engage they're busy people too. But we can reach out to Harry Ludlow. We know him. Yes.
Sure.
A little bit. Yes, we do.
Right.
So that would be easy to confirm that, and we can report back to you.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get
I
a
mean, you-
letter
you-
from
That's
Harry
easy.
You're not
Ludlow
gonna-
saying, I am farming the property, and,
Well, we'll probably just call him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I think you want something in the record.
Well, they can write a letter that says Harry Ludlow
Right.
is
Yeah.
farming the parcel,
Yeah.
Okay.
informally, an informal agreement, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Sure.
And right, and as you said, Jack, once production is going, that this use will be for an agricultural
Yeah.
purpose or something, just reassurance.
Right.
That's exactly what
let's
the
do
intention
that.
is, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I do think that the modifications are pretty small.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
And
couple
that
of
could
feet
just,
here and
that could just
there.
be a building
That's not
layout
an
error
issue.
for, 1.5 feet closer to something.
Yeah, the sanitary system was.
Sanitary
we
system moved
definitely
for
moved.
obvious reasons, right?
But yeah.
But it's not like you
precedent-
move from an area of non-prime ag to an area of prime ag. The whole property is prime
I
ag,
mean,
so
it
either
is
way, it's,
taking up a lot more, like, say you're eliminating like 4 or 5 rows, like, that is a lot of ag production out, whereas the placement of it before was a better spot if you were looking to get rows and
Yeah.
like move tractors through there. So I understand what they're
But-
saying there.
but they've also planted
you put
apples
in the
where,
septic?
where it was supposed to
My-
be
yeah,
before,
my
so it's the
septic.
same thing.
My
Your
con-
septic guy
contact,
did,
yeah.
and he just chose to move it, right?
No, we discussed moving, and then we got it replotted, you know.
Okay, but you know, when we approve a site plan, we spend a lot of time on a site plan,
Okay,
and we get builders in here all the time who just, oh, well, you know, it was in the way, so we took it out. Or site plan is kind of like the blueprint,
okay,
so we really ask you to respect it.
okay. I've been in town contracting for 22 years, I've never had a problem, you know.
Good.
issue.
So,
Good.
we'll report back.
Yep,
Okay.
great,
Good, we'll table it for today.
good, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I feel better.
Okay, no action on that.
Action on that.
Well, it's
I think we're jumping to number.
Yeah, Anthony?
No, I'm gonna let Jeff, I'm working the meeting tonight, so I'm letting Jeff finish.
So we can jump to number 15,
Okay,
Kim Lester Boat Storage. This is actually pre-submission. We're going to set the conference.
is this, can you just show it to us? Is this the
Yes.
one with the whole back of the property there?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
You know, I had asked on this how you calculated the number of boats that are
Right.
projected to be on this lot. Anthony, I think you said 22 boats, and I asked
Correct.
you, how did you calculate that?
I didn't calculate it. I'll just-
Was it guess?
It was a,
No, 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 we looked at this.
The applicant,
They
is
came,
that the applicant?
I did a sketch.
yeah, I was going to say, she.
Can you come up?
Why don't you come on
Why don't you come
up?
up?
Anthony, you could stay.
I like
Just
Susanna,
identify
she's nice.
yourself.
What's that?
Uh,
Oh, sorry. Susanna Herman and consultants for the applicant.
Okay.
Um,
Well, let's just get a basic overview.
Right, so this came before the planning board previously for a work session. There was a ZBA referral to do some dry boat storage out here. And that was part of the discussion was, can you define the area and show dimensions and show how many boats you could fit in a defined area. Basically is how it was done based on, various, boat sizes. And we probably started off larger, and I think we weaned it down a little bit, when we had discussions with the board and with the zoning board. So it was really based on Susanna's sketch, which we asked for her to prepare at that time to show,
I think it has to be a bit more scientific. We have, those boats, some of the boat yards are just horrendous.
They
And
are.
This is no double decker, this is
No,
single.
no boat racks.
That's my little sketch.
Remember the feeling, it looked very tight.
Yeah,
Like New
yeah,
York
yeah.
City parking lot is what
Yes,
came up.
right.
Well, just to help Jeff out here, remember, he's the one reviewing this application, but this is the scheduled pre-submission conference, and all these issues that you have are part of that process,
Right,
so,
but we might as well get some information.
No, no,
to
no, I
her
agree with you, I
At this
agree with you.
point, you've got equipment that's gotta go in there and haul out a boat, and there is no room for that.
What's the size of the parcel?
The
55,000 and change, so 1.26 acres.
1.26?
I remember this one, the key issues that I remember were having a lot of fence that delineates the edge of where you could place the boats, and then also how they're prepared for storage, that they would be drained of any kind of.
Yes, they'd be drained and
gas or
winterized
chemical.
before coming to the property.
Right.
So at the marina or wherever they pull it out of the water, they
Mhm.
would winterize them, and then basically it'd be like valet parking.
Mhm.
You would bring them on the trailers, and the people who own the boats would just leave them at the site during the off-season.
They're staying on trailers and not being blocked?
Good question.
That is a good
That's a good
question.
question,
Yeah.
but that's what the process is for, right? These are the
I-
questions we want to hear.
I work at Whitewater Marine. I'm the finance manager there, so I have a little bit more knowledge on this stuff than maybe the rest of my board members do. You can fit an awful lot of boats on 1.2 acres.
Yeah,
And 22 is not a large number.
I mean,
depending on the size of the boat.
this is what's across the canal from them. I
Oh,
mean,
wow, yeah.
That's not what we're proposing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is resort waterfront business, it is an allowable use of the property. We had to go to the zoning board of appeals because there's an pre-existing residence on the property, so there would be two uses. The owners of the property rent that out to a family, and this would be just a way to get additional income for themselves. It's a local family who owns the property. They've owned it for, I think, 100 years. The Allenson Lane name is relative of the current owner. So
So will you have size restrictions on each vessel or no?
yeah, I did this sketch based on boats being 23 to 25 feet. So we're not talking about giant
Yeah.
boats. I mean, those are, your recreational
Mhm.
boat that you would see. And they would just be parked there for the winter
Yeah.
and then removed.
Do they have a forklift on site, or are they going to?
I don't think so.
Because if not, then they'll all be on trailers.
That was my understanding. No
Yeah.
one's mentioned a forklift. I can ask that question, but
Mhm.
I think the idea was just to leave them on the boat owner's trailer
Yeah.
and park it.
Right.
So, and maybe Craig will answer is there a lot of jockeying back and forth when, because I have a vision of, the guy in the middle wants his boat.
Well, that's
Yeah,
where the
there's a lot of
valet parking
jockeying.
people come in.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I equated
Right,
to
right.
valet parking,
They'll
yeah.
come and move two out and take that one out and put it
Right.
back.
So
Well,
that-
in theory, when you do winter storage like this, you ask people when they're looking to get their boat in the water, and you stack the boats accordingly.
Try
But
it.
inevitably, the plan never works, and you have to
Yes.
jockey.
Right, I mean, they're
Right,
only,
right.
in my drawing, they're only about 3 boats deep.
Right,
So,
so it wouldn't be,
and
yeah.
it's not a
And you have access
huge-
all around, so it'd be easy to get something
Right.
in and out.
And I talked to the homeowner about putting a fence specifically around the boat storage area, which I think logistically would be difficult because of the backing in and
Yeah.
out. And what we had suggested instead would be to do a curb, like a little Belgian block curb around, it'll be a gravel area, and just do a Belgian block curb around it to delineate it. But if somebody needs to back a boat, you're not hitting
Yeah,
a fence.
Yeah, you're not constrained by a
Yeah, the
fence.
only fence, I think that, from what I recall, is a little while ago that we looked at it, was a fence at the 100-foot from the wetlands boundary line, because you really wouldn't want to be backing over that
Right.
part.
Well, we could do that, I mean, I think a curb would work just as well to delineate it.
Yeah, I think
Right.
a low curb would be good.
Mm-hmm.
And so the residence stays the residence.
Correct, they're not proposing to do anything like that.
And what's on either side here? We have another boat yard to this,
So residential property on all other sides?
it's all
Yeah,
residential.
well, it's multifamily, it looks like, on the ones
Most
to the
likely
south.
here,
On this.
but all residential.
Looks like down the road.
So there's going to be
There's a
some
number of-
community response to
Right.
this at the public hearing,
Wow.
right?
There was no one who showed up at the zoning board public hearing.
And there's no
We've-
fence around there.
There's a
at
lot
first-
of hedges.
Yeah, I think you were
There's
talking about
very
trees.
mature screening along the street and along the north
Ah,
and south.
okay.
Uh-huh.
And
Along
another,
the street as well.
Yeah,
Along the
you can
street,
see it
very,
right on
Uh-huh,
that
okay.
side.
yeah.
But we're
That's-
certainly going to
Actually, all three sides
use
seem to have.
there's a transition, 20-foot transition setback, that's what they did there. So if we need landscaping, like there is hedge there, actually. I was out there a long time ago.
It's a very substantial evergreen hedge on
Yeah, it
the
is.
street
On the
side.
street and along the property line too.
Yeah, I think it's red cedars around the southern property line. To the south is cottages.
Yep.
And then beyond that.
Are those seasonal cottages? Or are
I
they,
don't know if people live there year-round. I'm pretty sure they're rented out sort of long-term.
Make a difference with this.
Would this be subject to fire marshal referral?
There's nothing in there in the updated CM.
No.
Well, it's
Multi
well, they-
units,
yeah.
two multi units. They're not marked as seasonal.
I'm sorry, will this be subject to fire marshal referral or no?
Yes.
It will.
All site plans are. Not the pre-submission conference. Pre-submission conferences, we don't do any referrals. When we do a formal site plan, it will be referred to the fire marshal.
Battery recharging? Do you know if they're planning on doing that?
I don't know. Is that something that's typically done during?
Yeah.
The
And
ZBA
if
approval does,
so-
yeah, the ZBA approval does limit any maintenance or
Yeah.
repair or any of that
It
sort.
limits
So,
that.
Yeah, you cannot have any of that at all.
just parking?
Yes.
for storage?
Okay, yeah, because
Mhm.
that is a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't think they anticipated doing that.
Good. Okay.
So what are we looking for a public hearing on
I guess
March 9th?
I believe I proposed March 9th.
To just take a call.
Is that good, March 9th? for
I
you?
proposed
I'm
the
here,
23rd,
that-
but
that'll
March
work
9th
for
it
me.
is.
So motion to set the public hearing, it's complete, Jeff, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Motion.
A motion by George, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Kate was out of the room for the vote.
5 in favor, 2 absent.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Suzanne.
See you March
Thank you.
9th.
Thank you.
Today's
So we'll move on to number 17. Zarabi Family Trust. This one's an extension, a request for an extension. There we go.
I like being boat storage.
You need to put the dates in there, in the description.
I think I did revise it, so
Jeff.
yes, I'll include that moving
So
forward.
it's extension,
Extension for 180 days. The original approval was good for 180 days. They've submitted final paperwork to close out the approval, but to bring them current, they need the extension.
Okay, so
So
to
108
what?
Yes, so 180 days will bring them to March 10th,
To March
2020.
10th?
2023.
So an extension to March 10th. Motion
Motion?
by Craig, second
Second?
by Gloria. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 2 absent. To March 10th. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to site disturbances. Number 20.
Okay, by the way, Janice is going to be drafting something to have the re-veg plans administrative through her office and get them off our agendas, which
Oh, okay.
will be a godsend for us. And Jeff will shepherd, carefully
Yeah,
shepherd them through.
that's a good idea, actually.
I,
Put this one up for you.
But if there's a tricky business or a conflict, then
They
it'll
can
come
come
to us.
Yes, correct.
yeah, no, I was,
Yeah.
but I think we were talking about it requiring bigger stuff. Because if they just put little twigs in, so I'm just making that point that I
A
really.
larger caliber
I think we
trees,
really
yeah.
should be requiring larger caliber trees, because if it's gonna, that'll help replace what was taken, but it's still not gonna replace it.
The old stuff.
And if it's a little more onerous, maybe
Mhm.
people would be more careful.
Well,
So,
I think that's a separate issue. I think, weren't you working on that in terms of the re-veg plans?
I'm just saying, as part of moving it administratively, I'm
Mhm.
recommending that we up the ante.
Okay, we'll add that to it.
I will, maybe I'll come up with something, present it to you.
Okay,
Calipers.
yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly
Gallon
sure
size, that
what
kind of
we,
stuff.
what
But
we
it's-
request
It
now,
seemed
but,
that Janice was working on something like that. I don't know if it fell through the cracks, but,
They have, but
um,
we could certainly resurrect it.
but it was about, gosh, I'm trying to remember. It was about size.
yes, I mean.
It was about
because
size.
It's,
You can't replace it with a 1 caliper
Yeah.
size
The
tree.
1 inch or
And-
2 inch tree, yeah.
and
2-inch tree.
there's really no negative if you just clear cut and then replace.
Mhm.
And I think, personally, I'd like to make it a little more negative,
Right,
so people
tougher.
would think about it a little more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you on
Yeah.
that, because you remove, 10, 12-inch oak trees, and you
Yeah.
replace a 2-inch caliper tree for, it's,
You know, I'm not wearing green today, but I do have a green pen.
so just to clarify, we adopted the standards that the Environment Division, who generally handled revegetation plans, they require 3.5 to 4.5 caliper for trees. The gallon sizes differ depending on the type of shrub or plant, but those are the current standards, so we would probably have to increase that number from 3.5, maybe 4.5 to 5.5, just kind of gives
Yeah,
a baseline for that.
I know Marty Shea's office gives you those
Correct.
directions. I'm just saying, if we're going to move this administratively, let's not lose sight of maybe making it
Absolutely.
a requirement
more
to
of
be
a
a little-
consequence for moving, for
Yeah.
for
For the disturbance,
mature
yeah.
trees and putting back something that will take 20 or 50 years
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
get back to that size.
Yeah, and I mean, the purpose is to protect the aquifer,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so we
Right.
need,
Okay.
a carbon sequester.
Anthony, do you want to take it, or do you want Jeff to take it?
I got it, I'm gonna.
You
take
gonna
care
do
of
it?
Yeah, and I'll
Okay.
work with Jeff, obviously.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have a re-veg
Yeah, so this one
Number-
is
19.
number 9,
19?
number 20, actually.
Oh,
20.
Number 19, I believe, is Anthony's.
Oh, that's Anthony. My fault.
It's Fair Hills, oh, yeah.
Well, what
Fair
about
Hills.
48 Woodland Road?
That's mine, that's mine.
Okay,
It's rare that I get.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
okay.
Let me open this up for you.
Sure, it's page 46 in our,
46?
yeah,
So this one's right off of Scuttle Hole
Did we do
Road,
we didn't do that.
adjacent to the Wisnowski farmland.
Yep,
This property is, I
where
believe,
the fire was.
I'm sorry?
That's where there was a fire.
Yes, yes, yes. This lot actually comes with an easement, a scenic easement, that borders the farmlands. They are limited to 35% allowable clearing. They want to restore about 22.7% in vegetation that's been disturbed. Lot size 70,359 square feet. I'll give you an idea of the planting plan.
It didn't open it, actually.
It takes a little longer. So I've actually gone through this planting plan with the applicant a couple times. There were some ornamental plantings, as you can see on the schedule, that I had him separate from my list of native plants, just to make sure that they were satisfying the intent of the code for APOD. The ecology here is essentially like successional shrubland. So the plantings and the planting plan is more consistent with that type of ecology. So I'm not sure if you have any questions regarding the plan. But we have this before you for consideration.
Mostly shrubbery, or there's trees in there
No,
too?
trees. No, there's a great assortment of trees. Oaks, red maples, some pitch pines, and also some birches. So I had him include those as well. So you have a good assortment of canopy and understory. And again, I had him separate the, what we would call ornamental and non-native, that won't necessarily offer any restoration elements to the property. This way, we at least meet the requirement of the code.
Are you saying that the ornamentals are not part of the calculation to meet the code?
Correct. So I had him.
Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't exactly sure.
My apologies. Well, with these type of plans, and this is a pretty large project, I wanted to make sure that they didn't overload the project itself with ornamental plantings, which unfortunately does not feed into our aquifer. It doesn't do anything
Right.
much for that, so.
So
that
they're
was the
gonna be,
reason for that.
they'll have more
Yes.
coverage than,
100%.
got it.
And so this has to be planted in the spring. That, we also included that time limit, right?
Yes.
It has to be done within,
The approval, yes, the approval has to be done within 90 days from the commencement, but we've advised folks, we've had a mild winter thus far, but I think that's starting to change. So we've advised them to wait until the springtime to plant. There are a few applicants that want to kind of, run in there and knock it out, but we've advised them to wait until spring just in case. Between the time of planting and my time to go out to do an inspection, and that the overall survival of those plants, what's paramount here. So we've advised them to wait. If you have the spring, the summer, the fall, then there's a greater chance that they'll survive.
Was this a new construction?
Correct, yes.
isn't Fair Hills pretty built out though, up there?
This is actually another area of Fair Hills. This is right off of Scuttle Hole Road. I know what you're talking about. That one's closer to Brick Hill.
Yeah,
This one's right off Scuttle here, and then there's another section up here that's also Fair Hills.
yeah, that's the one I'm
probably what you're
thinking
familiar
of,
with,
yeah.
Yes.
I remember that application. Do you remember it, Anthony? Rick handled it,
That is true. Rick,
yeah.
that's right. Let's go back.
All right, any additional questions, concerns?
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this?
Motion?
Motion by Gloria, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? It's back, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And lastly, we have
Deerfield
Deerfield Heights,
Heights.
number 21. Lot 4 is 1870 Deerfield Road. This one's also a new construction piece. Sits on a 818 square foot property. They're permitted to clear 23.74% of the property. I know that number is different than what we're accustomed to. So they want to restore 12.4% of the vegetation that's been disturbed on the property. Their vegetation, permitted vegetation, was as per file covenant. Open this up for you.
Anthony, is this an example of the driveway, of all the clearing on the driveway being computed in or not?
Well, this is the flag strip, I think, so the code counts for the flag strip not being counted.
And I'll give you the plan. There's an aerial right off of
26,000
Deerfield
square feet
Road.
every vegetation, that's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I did a site visit, and most of the vegetation was essentially gone, unfortunately,
Just down to the dirt?
for the most part.
Boy, is this APOD?
This is a
Oh,
view,
you
yes,
go.
correct.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's
this
easier
is,
to
this
just
is a
clear the whole
prime,
lot,
this is a
right?
prime example of what I'm
Exactly.
talking about.
Yes.
Right, right.
The issue is the actions occur before we get an opportunity to even witness
Right.
it.
And you can't see it because it's so far back
Yeah,
off the
right.
road.
Absolutely right.
But when a property like this, we're only seeing this because of the overclearing, which was picked up as a final survey.
I'm gonna sit here.
Yes, generally either when they apply for building permits and for whatever reason the calculations don't add up, and or at a final CO stage, the request for a final CO.
But I'm just,
But
so
I'm
during
gonna
a,
answer your
during a
question.
building permit application,
Yeah,
I'm gonna answer your question.
yeah,
That's not, the site disturbance process was supposed to be, before that person gets a building permit to clear anything, they come to this board with their $1,600, with a plan showing what their clearing is.
Right.
We say, that looks good, it conforms, then they go get a building
right,
permit.
so
And
why isn't
So
that being
what's
followed?
happening?
it's become a mechanism for, and I don't know,
Forgiveness.
for rectifying
forgiveness.
forgiveness, or whatever word you
Yeah.
want to use.
Yeah.
But the procedure has, long before I got here, I know I did a lot of these in private practice.
So
but
Anthony,
see, there-
include that in
Yeah,
your
Discussion, but
document.
There should be a substantial
Yeah.
fine for overclearing and doing that
We've been,
before you
we've
do
been
it.
doubling the fees. You know, I
Yeah.
hear you, I'm,
But that's piddling.
Yeah.
How do
I agree
we
with you.
fix the process?
That's what we're
That's
Well,
talking
that's
what
what I'm gonna,
Anthony is
I'm
talking
gonna
about.
sit down with Janice again, but I've raised this before, I'm.
She's very keen to,
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
on this.
I mean,
So,
I just see overclearing,
Yeah, that's-
just
that's what-
walking through my neighborhood.
Mhm.
And if they just go to the building department and they get a permit, I don't really know what the process is, but
so generally, the building department's supposed to review those applications and verify whether or not they have clearing restrictions on the property. Now, whether or not that survey or site plan that's submitted actually depicts that accurately, we don't know. So the building department may issue a permit with a survey that has old clearing calculations on it as opposed to current clearing calculations. Another issue too is their processing time. So most of these applicants decide, you know what, it takes me 5 months to get a building permit. Let me go ahead and just knock out some trees, start with a clean canvas, and then by the time I get a permit, we can go ahead and start
Well,
construction.
whatever the, whatever the
Whatever it
reasons are, you know, this is how it's been done. But part, you know, so now you have an improved property that has clearing restrictions, the survey shows that it complies, they're doing an addition. They show that they comply, the building department's looking at a survey, a certified survey, saying, okay, the numbers comply. That being said, I could also say that I can't tell you the number of times a building inspector, all of them, by the way, have come to me with the question, this doesn't look right to me, and this, so I will tell you, because we have them, we have dozens of these applications, the building department does pick up on them, a lot of times, but not all the time, you know it, so I understand, you know,
so there's a
we're gonna
link
work
in the
on here.
process that's broken.
Yeah, it's gotta be, we gotta fix it a
Gotta
little
fix
bit.
it. We gotta
Should
fix
it?
it a lot. We
Yeah,
won't-
yeah, yeah.
We're gonna wreck the aquifer.
Does the building application, like, completeness rely on an approved site plan?
Not typically, it's not on their checklist as far as I know.
Okay.
So, because I used to work with the building department as well.
Yeah.
So generally, if it gets past what we would call the counter, which is your initial submission, the building inspector then does a review on the survey or site plan that's submitted. They're supposed to have clearing calculations. If you're an APOD, it's supposed to have clearing calculations. Or if you're in a subdivision that has clearing calculation or clearing restrictions, again, it has to have clearing calculations on it. So at that stage, they're supposed to catch the issue and then refer them back to our department for an application. But if the survey itself is not necessarily accurate or says that they're in compliance, then we don't receive anything until after the construction is complete.
So you, having been on the building department side, where do you think it can be tweaked and improved?
It could be on the initial application stage. before they submit an application for a building permit or before it's reviewed, they can come to planning department for verification. We can go out even upon their.
I want to talk to Janice about this, if you don't mind, before we start giving ideas
Yeah,
about
no.
how. I hear you. I got to get Janice, because if it's going to require code changes, then we're going to have to deal with it. So
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I'm going to discuss it. There's Claire. She heard everything too. So we'll move on this actually.
I mean, we're trying to make it better.
I agree with you. I'm not being argumentative. I don't want you to think that. I'm on your side here.
I'm saying that
100%.
for the audience that's
Yeah,
not in this.
100%. But we'll see what we could
Good.
come up.
Good, thank you. Okay, Jeff, you're done? Did we?
Yes.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't vote on Deerfield.
We didn't vote, yes.
Okay, so you were,
So this, again, this applicant wants to restore 12.4% of overcleared vegetation. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a 200,000 square foot piece.
27,000 square feet of
Right.
overclearing.
And again, I visited the site myself. This is pretty on par with the amount of disturbance on the property.
everywhere.
So yes, the revegetation plan itself does bring this property back into compliance. And obviously, we would recommend that they wait until after the spring.
Is there some elevation on this property? Is it flat?
Sloped, it does slope up a bit towards the back. I remember it took me a bit to walk back here where the tennis court's constructed. But most of the elevations back here is fairly flat around the front. But again, this was after some major site work.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Motion to approve this re-veg plan by George, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. And now we'll go to Anthony.
We'll do my stuff, though. The only thing is I have one applicant here, so if we do through theirs first,
Sure.
I appreciate it. That's number
Sure.
19, it's a clearing matter,
Oh, that's
which means you know I have it.
So it's,
Tricky?
It's not, it's a tricky one.
My note was, this is a problem.
Okay.
About this one?
Yes.
You got the wrong note.
That's, well,
Yes, this is a strange,
It is
oh
a
gosh,
strange
we've got
one.
3 people here, so
we've got,
to handle my problem
I mean, it
note.
looks like an English garden that was put in.
So, well, that's existing.
Here, can I just
Go
give
ahead,
a little...
overview,
so,
please.
Just real quick, I took this over, it's another one I took over for Jackie. You've had a discussion once on this property. There's a 48 Woodland Farm Road. Let me see if I have... Okay, here's the... Just try to give you a sense. So it's this wooded property back here. It's not a flag strip. It's a landlocked parcel, but does have easement, an access easement that provides access to the lot. They have a building permit that was issued for this property for a tennis court.
Is this off of Middle Highway? No?
Hold on.
Middle line, it's not directly off of Middle
What?
Let me hear, what I could do is,
It's up on Roses Grove.
Line. Yeah,
Yes, I'm sorry.
What?
I'm gonna get a better,
It's off Roses Grove.
Roses Grove.
I walked, Woodland Farm Road is off of Middle Highway,
so,
off in
Okay.
Roses Grove.
I
alright.
think it's off of Roses, we'll see in a second.
So here's the property up here. So where are you? Watermill Top comes over here, Deerfield is over here.
That straight line up to the top, that's Middle Highway.
That's Middle Line Highway.
Yeah.
So yes,
So that's the access.
Yeah.
so you're,
Oh, yes.
yeah, you're familiar.
I walked that road
That
100
west
times.
portion of Middle
Yes.
Line.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
I live around the corner.
Stop, there you go. So a building permit was issued for this property for the construction of a tennis court up here, as I showed on the aerial. The clearing is all associated up here with the development. It's all wooded in the back. They got a building permit for this tennis court. That building permit was conditioned on the applicant doing a revegetation plan subject to this board's approval. The applicant came to this board, wanted to transfer clearing rights. The planning board wasn't inclined to go in that direction. Asked for a revegetation plan. It looks like they're, don't know the exact square footage, but it's 3,000 and change square feet, 4,900, there it is. And what they're proposing to do is revegetate that clear area up to 4,900 to bring it into compliance The primary issue that the applicant is asking for is this entire development here, all of this, is completely walled in with a retaining wall all around here.
Is what?
A retaining wall.
It has a retaining wall.
I'm sorry, all around here. So, with this also masonry retaining wall in the center of this area, the applicant's asking the ability to revegetate, but to keep the retaining wall within the portion of the revegetation, with the exception of this masonry wall in here, which would come out. And so rather than, I told them to come and speak to the board and to bring somebody to discuss the retaining wall and engineer something.
Can you bring it back to aerial again on
Sure.
that? And zoom in on that properly,
Yeah.
if you don't mind?
When I first took a look at this, I thought, well, why don't they just put the tennis court
In that
there?
area, that's,
Yeah,
that's
the
why I'm
same
looking
shape.
at, yeah.
I
that's
think
why
we
I'm-
had this
Size?
discussion.
And I don't know why. I mean, I'll ask
Why
the
didn't they?
applicant that
Because
question.
the
Why
tennis court
didn't
is
they?
installed now, right?
No,
No.
Oh, it's,
No.
okay, it's not, yeah, so.
There's concerns, again, this was the permit as it was when my client bought the property, which called for, what, the scenario under which we're under, which called for the court to be here and for the re-veg to happen here. There are concerns here with proximity to the neighbor, immediately to the east of the tennis court, and side yard setback concerns, accessory side yard to the western property line. In addition, you're getting right up, if not over, on portions on the front yard accessory setback, which is why, when the permit was applied for by the previous owner, the court was determined by the building department to be here with a re-veg here.
You're pointing at that, but I don't know which
Okay.
way you're.
So the portion that's opened up now
Yeah.
was determined pursuant to the building permit obtained by the previous owner to re-veg that area in the
And
front
build
and put it in the back. For the reasons I stated, plus the accessory structure made more sense in the back. If you look at the lot as a whole, it's incredibly vacant in the back.
And traditionally, a tennis court goes in a rear yard.
Yeah.
With
you
next to
just-
the pool.
Usually you need a variance, I think, to put it in the front yard.
Exactly. So,
But it's not really a front yard.
in a
'cause it's
required
in the
front
middle of
yard,
nowhere.
exactly. So, because of that, the building department issued permits, for the reasons I said, putting it here and re-vegging here. The reason we're here today is quite simple. We're fine with re-veg, we're gonna do a re-veg plan that Arias is gonna construct. The question is that, in preparing for this, it was determined that the retaining wall, removing it, would actually do more harm to the existing vegetation than allowing us essentially to plant around and within it.
How high is the retaining wall?
About 4 or 5 feet tall in some areas, maybe even taller, 6 feet.
Why is that? Was this a decorative garden area that you put in?
I think my client didn't put this
It
in.
was 3 property owners ago.
Okay, so.
Is it, I know that area is hilly. Is
It's,
is that part of
yeah.
the reason?
it's a slope from the
Yeah.
front all the way to the back.
They probably just wanted a flat area of
flat
lawn,
lawn,
and they,
yeah.
they wall it
Yeah.
in to hold up the soil, and then.
Right. And if you want to speak to what you found,
What would
what
the
got
wall
us
they-
to where we are is the concerns raised by Arias.
Steve with Aris Design. The wall they put in is a segmental block unit wall, it's just like concrete blocks, and they're stacked on top of each other. It's about 4 to 5 feet high. That was about 6 or 7 years ago when that was built, and the vegetation behind it's really filled in. Like there's native bayberry that's come in, there are birch trees, there's some ground covers that have come in. So it really is filled in nicely. So we started looking at, we were asked to say what kind of impact would it be to remove the wall. Couple of concerns. One is when those walls are constructed, there's a geogrid that goes behind the wall that holds basically every 2 courses of the block. You put a geogrid in, and it goes back into the upland slope of it. So that soil got put on
I'm
top
sorry,
of
what's
that
a
geogrid.
geogrid? Is that like a
It's like
rebar?
it's like a filter fabric
Yeah.
almost,
Okay.
but it strengthens the wall so it won't push over time.
I see.
So it's holding back against that slope, the weight of the soil is put on top of it. Part of the concern is we start to remove those blocks, that geogrid starts to get shifted too and moved too. That's every 2 courses of the block wall. That can increase the amount of disturbance. And then we did a little diagram on if we were going to remove it, how much soil would we need to bring in to restore the grade to sort of a more of a natural grade? And it was quite a bit of, I forget how many cubic yards it was. It was 130 cubic yards, which equates to about 11 trucks
How much
come through.
trampling would you be doing when you bring those trucks in?
It's a lot, to remove the wall and then bring in the soil, it didn't make sense because it's not like it's a treated timber wall, it's not like leaching anything. We thought, leave it in place, there's vegetation's growing behind it, it seems stable, and there's a plant in front of it with a really nice augmented native planting plant in front of it.
Did you put it in?
No.
No, we weren't part of it. The construction of the wall? No.
How
That-
old is it?
I think it's about 7 years old.
That's all?
Yeah.
Relatively new.
I think it's set, well, it was when the house was constructed or.
16.
2016, yeah, it was built in 2016.
What kind of material made up?
Concrete block.
It's a concrete block wall, it's a segmental
I've seen
unit
those
block
there,
wall.
and they use them to make, just a huge
26, okay.
3-4 ton block.
So you want, so what is there, do you have any
Stacking.
photographs of what's there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd be re-vegging inside?
Basically, the
Inside
entire
that,
thing, there's,
yeah.
if you look inside the grid,
We're
or
getting pictures.
the walls, there's a masonry wall there and a semicircle, that's coming away.
So that
The
little
steps,
semicircle.
everything's coming
what's
away,
shown in
it's
that
just the
second
border
photograph.
of that area.
We have no problems taking that little wall.
What is it?
Wall
What is
out.
it, like, it
You're
looks like
getting
sand,
pictures.
right? There's no,
Yeah.
that's not plantable soil.
When
No.
you go 4 inches into the ground and you
Yeah.
hit beach sand.
Yeah, it's definitely typical of an oak pine forest.
Yeah,
out here,
it's amazing how the.
So what's the
how
dimension of
forest
this?
actually
Let's
survives
call it
with that little bit of
wall
soil.
It's unbelievable.
About a
What's the width of that enclosure?
That's what I just
About-
asked. what the
Yeah,
size of it is.
65, I would say, feet
Wide,
65 feet long?
wide by about 110.
that's being revegetated.
That's being, well, no, that's being revegetated or just the structure
Okay, so the
itself?
structure itself, 65.
65 by 110.
Around that.
And about 2/3 of
It's-
that
It
being
actually looks
half
beautiful
being
despite the
revegetated.
fact that it's not native.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, about 2/3 of that would be revegetated. Yeah.
And that brings it into compliance with the clearing restrictions. So we're not over clear right now, but with the construction of the tennis court, as per the building permit, we'd have to revegetate a little less
So you see
area
that-
than the tennis
so you see-
court.
so you see, this is one process that's actually happening correctly, right? We have an application to the board for,
Yeah.
Right,
This
well,
would be one that would
this
stick
one
with
won,
you,
that
yeah.
would come to us. So what do you?
And
what
it's
would-
bizarre scenario, rarely do these permits get issued conditioned on clearing, on revegetation. But that's what happened here. Yeah, I know, that's what happened here.
In other
I
words,
said
it
to the
worked.
applicant, I said, I've never seen.
I
the
didn't,
building department
this
make
wasn't
a
my work.
recommendation.
I inherited this, but whoever did it, they
And
got it done.
We have no problem preparing a plan, we will, we just want your okay to keep the wall, so that then we can move forward with the preparation of the planting plan before we spend that money to prepare it, and then, come back to you guys. We'll come back to you with the plan, is what I'm
So
basically getting at.
what's the rationale for this wall being so high?
Because of the grade, the natural grade of the property. I'm assuming when it was pre-development, it sloped, it was quite a bit of slope there.
Yeah,
And
you
when
can
they set the house,
It
where
cut
they.
into the
Yeah.
slope.
Because
I mean,
with the way it is, the slope goes from the front and it's going down toward the back.
And in the
So
back,
they-
there's a significant grade
Drop
difference on the
down,
back.
Right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
they had a balance to cut fill, I think, where they put the house at like an elevation where they cut into it. And they, they tried to balance it out.
There are
It's
a
usually
lot
what they
of
try to do.
houses built that way, also on Ocean View Parkway, which is just a little further down the road, that's the very, very end of where Midline ends on the western
Right.
side. There, that corner house has like a two-story difference between the front and the back.
And Eris has
Similar.
prepared a letter, which I believe is in the file that
It is,
Anthony
okay.
has,
Right.
that
So-
discusses all of this, these
So,
points.
my question would be, how do you guarantee that you're not gonna overclear when you put that tennis court in?
Can we put a project limiting fence up?
So that'll all be
I mean,
required.
that's gonna be conditioned on
Um,
the permit, and then there'll be a survey post-construction to get the CO that'll have clearing on it.
So it'll be an
As built.
example of what we're talking about ahead of
That'd be
time.
great.
What we normally do is, once we approve a re-veg plan, they do everything, we get, like the building department does, like we do when we do a site plan, there's an as-built that's done then. That surveyor goes out there, says everything that's happened, and then we go out there with that survey and say, all right, this is correct, the clearing is correct, the re-veg is correct. And if it's not, and we've done this before, we leave the property, call up the applicant, say, go plant some more stuff to the plan. But we will go out there and verify. Look, here, what I will say is, listening to the board before, if the planning board's gonna go in this direction, and then we wanna see a robust planting plan with significant, vegetation. That's only gonna be my recommendation, if the board's going in this direction.
Yeah.
Is that's gotta be substantial.
Yeah.
Now, would the
Now-
lawn remain, or would you?
We remove the lawn in that area.
In that area.
That has to, I don't know that we always do it, but when I did, re-veg plans, noted on the re-veg plan, area of lawn to be removed.
Yeah.
I always
Well, that
do.
makes sense. You can
That's-
really try
that's
to.
no
So
question.
this is a constrained site, no matter, even though it's quite long.
'Cause
So when
isn't
you
that-
go in to put this tennis court in, what are you gonna wreck in getting in there?
Oh, you mean, how do we
To the back of the
navigate?
property.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens with builders and
They'll go around the
contractors.
side,
How wide
there's
is the
access
property?
this. wait, which
The
side?
property is
This side.
169
It's not very
feet wide. 169 feet wide and
It's 5 acres, so.
1,353 feet long. Yeah.
There's an awful lot of those lots like that. They're
Yeah.
all bowling alleys.
It's 116, and this terrace, let's call it, is 65 feet wide. So are you gonna have enough space to get a tennis court, to get construction equipment in there?
Here, yeah, there's plenty of room there. To build back here? Yes, yeah.
And to address the chair's concerns, if there is a mistake and excess clearing is done, which we don't anticipate, there's room here to further revegetate if
You'd
needed.
have to take out this elliptical.
Right, but there is that ability to.
Well, let's hope it
But
doesn't.
we're not gonna get to
It's not gonna get to that.
Do you need a retaining wall back there
Do you need a retaining wall for the tennis court?
for the back?
No, they're not going to, because of the grade kind of.
It's kind of
flattens out,
Evens
yes,
a little
yeah.
bit.
No, I guess Jackie was really asking, so in having to create access around that side of the property, are you gonna, you disturb additional area that would have to be revegetated by some kind of path or drive to be,
They can go around the east side of the
yeah,
house.
but that's going on property that's not that's already
No,
vegetated,
between
right?
the house and the existing retaining wall, because the whole property is, the development property is walled, so.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So they have to stay within the
may I
existing
make a
wall
suggestion
confines.
Go ahead.
Since the planning board's raised these issues and everything, the planning board seems to be okay with considering it, with your re-veg plan, show the board how you plan on.
Showing access?
The access,
Construction
access.
methodology plan.
Within the,
Yeah.
yes.
Right, does that make sense to the
That
board?
makes good sense.
But at the same time, if you do go outside of that because of whatever happened, then you might have to revegetate that area that you encroach on in making a construction access, you know.
This will have to, when we get the CO,
Yeah.
this will have to be conformed to clear.
And
So
you're
can I
you're
ask-
accessing Woodland Farm Road from,
I guess you were right, from Middle Line Highway, right?
I'm also a walker, so I'm snooping all the time.
So can I ask a simple question?
Sure.
The people who bought this property, it's relatively new owners.
3 years. 2 to 3 years, I think.
Do they think that the water that we drink comes from the faucet, or do they know about an aquifer?
They
They're
know
aware
it's a
of it.
well.
I mean, they're aware of the aquifer, because that's why they're here before you,
No,
instead
no,
of
no.
constructing it.
A lot of people, you say aquifer, they don't know what you're talking about. So I'm on a mission now of,
To educate.
yeah, yeah, I mean, we know it, but a lot of people don't. They think it comes from the faucet or the town. They don't know that they're sitting over
Like
it.
broccoli comes to the supermarket and not the farm.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and they're an APOD, which means nothing to people, the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. So,
So, you know, the real question is for the previous property owner who felt that they need to
Yeah.
create that large area of green lawn when you're watering it with water from an aquifer.
yeah, all of
That's where the
that.
real issue is,
Yeah, that too.
yes.
On fertilizing
But
it.
my question, I thought you said they have an easement or something to get to Woodland Farm Road, or they do have,
If you want to zoom out, see this long driveway over various properties?
okay.
That's how they get access off of, what's that road right there?
Woodland Farm.
Woodland
That's
Farm
what-
Road, that
yeah.
is. And Woodland Farm goes right to Middle Line.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then it seems to end in the woods.
Woodland Farm is, there's like an old road, paper road there that has essentially been converted.
Old Sag Harbor
Even
Road.
to, I'm talking to the east, Anthony.
Yeah,
Old
Old Sag Harbor Road.
Oh,
That's a
Is that a portion of Old
Yeah.
Sag Harbor?
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yep,
That just-
Unopened.
That just
Unopened.
dies?
yeah.
Unopened.
yeah.
Yeah, so the driveway continues one property to our east and then dies into
Mhm.
the
All right,
woods.
but that, you know, when we were looking at this, Anthony said, look at the amount of clearing on this access driveway.
Well, look at the ones in the.
The one, yeah.
That
That's a
one
neighbor.
is enormous, and that did not go into the calculation, Anthony?
I'd have to go back and.
Yeah,
I mean, that is, there's no reason to have that drive.
that is like a gash.
I don't want to be a bad neighbor.
And these people obviously are not there in the winter.
The neighbors
that's
or
right.
my clients?
Any of them with these long driveways.
Oh, yes.
So you don't have an action today. We're gonna have the applicant come back with a.
Yes, with
plan.
all those plans that we're talking
Sure,
about,
yeah.
and, yeah,
But you're open to keeping the
Yeah.
wall?
Okay.
Okay, that's what we're,
well, it's, yeah.
our primary goal
All
at
right.
the moment.
So we'll do the
Almost
revenge
forgot
plan.
that.
We can go
You want to
spend
put
the
on
money.
agenda again now, or?
I didn't set my agenda yet. Okay, get me the stuff first, because I have a big agenda next time, so.
Good to see you.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Just real quick, members of the board, number 22, I have Wayne Bruin here, so.
Okay, when the 22, Wayne is back. Wayne never leaves.
Wayne,
He's a permanent fixture.
just real quick, this is Jacqueline Cressy. Obviously, you remember this.
This is
Maureen?
another one I want.
That's
I
right,
mean,
this
it's
is the
like-
one on Bayview Drive where we were doing the lot line change between these two properties, and then to redevelop the properties, if you might recall.
Oh, my God, this is the house that's in the water.
That sits right in the
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
So it's before, now it's finally before the zoning board. The zoning board, it's an unlisted action. I had them coordinate, so this planning board could take a look at the plans. Only because you're the wetlands approving authority, we went through all the trouble with the pre-app report. So the only action here is for you to say that you want to be lead agency, and I will tell the zoning
We
board.
do.
Is that a swimming pool to the east of this property? What is that?
I
That
believe.
is this one.
Yes. That's
Looks like a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And this is that floods. This is the
Yeah,
area that you said
but
floods all
there's
the
a
time.
giant house being built.
Oh,
It's,
hold on.
there's enough.
Oh,
con-
yes, yes,
there's
yes. I'm
enough
sorry,
con-
these are my old aerials.
Yeah,
probably.
there's enough concrete for like the Statue of Liberty or something.
Yeah, you're right.
There's-
They got a wetlands permit for that property.
Yeah,
It's
and
pretty-
I
Where
didn't
is the
have,
house
I didn't
going?
have my glasses, so I couldn't read the building permit when I was there Sunday a week ago.
Yeah, but,
Where's the,
Are they raising it? They must be raising it.
They
not even
have,
putting
I
concrete,
can't
I'm
even figure
surprised.
out what they're
Wayne-
doing,
Wayne
because it looks
probably
like
knows,
it's in
right.
a cofferdam. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so when our client came to us.
Wayne Bruin?
Yeah, Wayne Bruin, O'Shea Marcinsick and Bruin for the applicants. When we were engaged, along with Suffolk Environmental, to review this, one of the things we often do is look at what's happening in the adjoining properties. And this is very important because this house is sitting in the water, and how erosion has occurred because of activities and bulkheads on other properties nearby. But one of the things that immediately jumped at us is that the Conservation Board had reviewed and approved the construction of a house immediately adjacent. And one of the things on our plan that has been an impediment, which you reviewed and understand, was on our common boundary line is sort of a low area
Floods.
that has been wetland vegetation, and when there is high rainfall or flooding, it's.
Like
so that-
yesterday.
So that's been characterized as wetlands, and that's what's impeded, the development on our property. Nonetheless, that was also identified for the property next door, but you can now see the development. We provided in the record a copy of that site plan
I
of
think
what was
this is
going on. But, so now you can actually see, at the time when we first applied, they hadn't started construction,
That's
but
the
now
house
it's
that they're-
happening, so.
Oh, my
I
gosh.
see the pool is,
House, the
pool,
pool,
two-story house,
garage.
it's a small house.
This was not, remember, they're before you because of the lot line change, therefore
Yeah,
you're going
yeah.
to do the wetlands permit. This went through the
But it looks like
Conservation Board.
there's just a lot of concrete might be for retaining walls
Yeah.
around
Yeah,
the septic
it's-
system and
and
all of that stuff.
I was climbing over it last Sunday, and I couldn't figure out what they were doing.
Big. But in this case, I'm going to recommend that we just advise the ZBA. that
Yeah, we're
we want
lead
to-
agency, yes.
Yeah,
So
but thank you for
motion?
giving me a little word.
Yeah, I mean, but you could see where my client's coming from. It's like,
Fairness.
she's just trying to move the house back to a modest little house, and look what's going on the neighboring properties, and, why is she having such a
Yes,
hard time?
that was, I was aghast when I saw what was being built.
It's huge.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Motion to take lead agency on this application. Motion by George, second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Good, now we'll go back to the beginning. You go to numbers 6 and 7.
You can look on that in your walking.
Yeah, they were.
I gotta walk with you.
And they acknowledged it too, so.
Okay, 6 and 7, Coastal Vision 1 and 2.
Just in case. I have both reports attached.
Do you want me to take them?
They're both basically identical, as this board knows. I tried to make this simple because the properties are vacant, they're largely square and trapezoidal. And
Thank you.
we got a lot of maps submitted with this application,
Thank
so I tried to hone in a little.
So these 2 lots are right below Lewis Road development.
Yeah, I'll try to use my GIS instead. Okay. Here we go. So I can zoom out a little bit. We don't need that. Yep, so, yep, here's Lewis Road, obviously. So these properties are just to the east of that. So Coastal Vision 1 is the property furthest west here, and Coastal Vision 2 is the one next to it. Just want to give you a little background, because it makes it easier. In this case, I tried to make it simple for myself. So these are 2 vacant properties in the R20 zoning district. They're not in the APOD on this side of the road, or on this side of the railroad, I should say. They're not in any overlay districts, not the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, so they are just in the R20 zoning district. The applicants submitted 2 separate applications for each property, really for the purposes of trying to establish yield. Ultimately, when they come in, remember, this is going to be a major subdivision, so it's subject to a preliminary approval. Unlike a minor subdivision where we try to front load everything because they're coming in with a final application at that point with health department, we get the benefit of a preliminary with a major subdivision, which is where all the engineering gets done, it's where the environmental that gets done, it's where the yield is established, so.
Okay, so just go, there's people on the board.
Yeah, that's why I'm
So preliminary is when it's a major subdivision.
when a major subdivision. you
And a
have to
major
reset
subdivision
process.
is determined by how many lots?
How many lots, whether there's a new road, actually, yeah, that's the criteria right there, as a matter
Right
of
there.
fact. Yeah. So in this case, the number of lots, when you look at them combined, and that's how we're going to do this. We're going to look at this as ultimately as one.
He
one
had 6
subdivision.
on 1 and how many?
Yeah, well, what happened was, just so you know, and the applicant couldn't be here, he was totally okay with the report. They're the ones who came to me and said, we're going to give you a bunch of maps, and then you can tell us what it is you want.
Remember that.
That's my favorite kind of application. The question for them was yield. Do we put in a park? Do we not put in a park? So they have all sorts of maps with all sorts of stuff. So what I tried to do was take this report and now get them to not do 17 different maps. They're going to do 2 at the next phase. And now I'm going to go through in the report what those issues were. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward here. These are a canvas, clean canvas. And so I'm going to go through the first report, which is Coastal Vision 1, and then it's going to be very similar, obviously, for Coastal Vision 2. But obviously, we know, like I said, it's right now, and by the way, that's the East Quogue Mobile Home Park, right adjacent to it. I think right down here. Although, I'm pretty sure we have some type of pending application to move a bunch of these to the other side of the road.
The other side, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Right,
Claire's
right,
application, right. And what's the big open space?
This down here?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a developable piece of property. We did a pre-app on this for a density incentive type of the subdivision. Well, we were in the middle of reviewing another application, but they never moved forward that. So this property is ripe for development as well. I should point out that you have these are the 2 properties in question. This is open space here. The town owns this piece. And I believe, since we have the GIS here, might as well do it.
And Lewis Road is right above?
Well, Lewis Road is really over here.
Okay.
And so you can see we do have here open space, and even over here some open space. So there is some reason here to
Some trees left.
we want to keep the trees. All right. So looking at a standard versus a cluster plan, and then this is very consistent for the other property as well. I think in this case, I don't think the planning board is going to require an on-site park here. We don't require them very often, but if the planning board was to do it, and you don't have to make a decision now, we could always look at it. But if you wanted to do an on-site park, you could, that then would go on a yield map and then it get excluded from yield. Otherwise, we would then take the park fee like we've been doing in most instances, and then the area of the park doesn't come out of yield. So that's how the way they've been doing it. Under that assumption, then they could proceed with a park, a yield plan that would remove the park. With respect to part of what they're doing with their yield is they're showing these roads, these paper roads in between the properties being abandoned, so they could acquire the land area and do their yield based on that. I don't personally have an issue with that, but there's a question that these two lots are not part of the subdivision for which these roads are noted. So there's a question of whether or not they could actually abandon them. This was raised by Dave Wilcox with me.
This is not an old file map.
This isn't, but the old file map up here does reference these roads down here, but not the lots.
Is there an open map?
I was just
Is
gonna
there-
ask that. Thank
Yeah, is there an old file? Nothing.
Dave and I didn't come across anything.
It
Like
would
I
be
said,
old, right? It would.
we'd have to go back, like I said, what we had on record. It doesn't mean that they can't be abandoned, by the way. We just have to do more legal research to see what we have on
How-
old file maps,
Right.
title certifications. and-
Sure.
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay. So part of what I said in the second, as it relates to the standard versus the PRD, to do your yield, without the road abandonments on this property, I don't believe they would have a 7-lot yield. I believe they would have a 6-lot yield. Of course, this needs to be verified with the appropriate.
Well, if they can't abandon the road, they can't join the two properties and develop them together, or can they?
You raised a very good question that Christine said to me, that if they can't abandon it, what exactly can they do, right? Can they improve it? So, to that point, though, it doesn't mean that you can't look at a single subdivision. If at the end of the day, this second lot is where we want to get the open space because it's next to the open space, and this is where we want to cluster the lots, we would could absolutely look at the two properties, even if they're not co-joined per se,
But leave the road.
but leave the road.
Well, you leave the old file.
Or leave the
But
old
it's a
file.
very similar thing to Lewis Road.
Yeah, that's right.
There's these old file map, old file lots there that are right in the middle of the golf course.
Yeah, and like I said, some were abandoned that were able to, some that weren't able to. So in this case, we noted it, that we're gonna do the further legal research and title research.
Now, do they have to do that, or we?
Well, we
should
can do whatever we can internally with our own, and Randy's on notice that he might have to have a lot of title work done to see,
Yes, sure.
and then that would be on the applicant.
Yeah.
Not totally burning myself.
Anthony, you said that the total yield is actually 6?
It may be. In other words, if they can't do the abandonments, they would have less yield than what they're showing.
Do they
have less
gain an
land area.
extra?
What's that?
Do they gain an extra, like the seventh lot, if they deem it for affordability? Wasn't there some?
Well, I'm going to get to that actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So what'll happen is if this is if they're allowed 6 lots, if that's their yield, then their yield goes up to 7. They have the density, not their yield. I shouldn't say their yield. They could do it. They get a density incentive for a 7th lot then. So they would get one more.
One
for
affordable housing.
So we have to do that. The second part, any type of flag lots, they have to be, if they're on a yield map, they got to be 1.5 times in the R20 zone within the bulk of the property. So you got to have the 30,000 square feet in the bulk of the property, excluding the flag strip. This is for yield purposes, by the way.
Yeah, yes.
So I put that in there.
I'm sorry, is that density, the affordability, that density increase, is that mandated?
Yeah.
It is.
It is. Once
But they
it's
can
6.
buy out of it, in the
Well,
past, they were able to buy out
In
of
the
it.
past, that's all at the discretion of the powers that be here, and we've sort of gotten out of taking the money, because we just don't want to build housing. We could leave it to the people who build housing to build housing instead of the town.
We have also just reduced the number of lots, made the lots bigger so they don't trigger the number.
That's right.
Trigger the
So
density.
what we've been doing, if you're gonna get a subdivision, we would probably say, build the lots, because we need single-family lots.
I won't interrupt you anymore.
No, you can. That's good. Number 4, they have to comply with the 120-foot lot width. So on the yield map, they got to show that. They also should show lot depths on Old Country Road. If they're going to use the road to provide access, they should show depth sufficient enough that you would be able to get a buffer on there, even if it's not the map that you're going to go with. Because the purpose of a yield plan and a standard yield plan is that it's got to be a real subdivision. You can't just throw it together and say, I have the yield. It has to be a reasonable option for this board to consider. So a yield map then needs to show, we could provide the kinds of buffers that you would require even if we don't use this map, and that's what we normally do. So that's why I've said that there. Road alignment and cul-de-sac requirements shall comply. They should show the LIPA utility lines and the limits of clearing. I think there's just some clearing in the back of the property along the railroad, but not much. And then to your point then, in this particular case, the density incentive would result in a total of 7 lots. So this would be a major subdivision, because they show the new roads. This is an unlisted action under SECRA, so they're going to submit a long environmental assessment form. And to the point to the board here, and I discussed this with Randy, you know, this is in East Quogue. We know there's a lot of activity in East Quogue. We got that property to the south that is also ripe for development. So the big goal here is we got to protect trees. You know, as part of this is not an APOD, but you'll see as I get through my recommendations that I'm treating it like it's APOD, and you know, so we'll go through that. Conformance with the comprehensive plan. Again, nothing was mentioned specifically in the comp plan. However, Randy was good enough to point out that in the East Quogue 2008 environmental impact study plan that they did, it did point out these 2 properties basically to develop them at half-acre density. So there was no proposed zone change for these properties. In fact, they were contemplating shifting development further away from the creek up to this side of the highway.
How far is this from Worcester Creek?
That I don't know.
I think it's close, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I consider everything in this area fairly close, you know, to East Creek.
But the 2008, there was what, a Hamlet study for?
Yeah,
East Quogue?
and East Quogue, and you know, that's where a lot of the zoning recommendations came out. These 2 properties were specifically recommended for half-acre, which is still the R20 zoning.
I was gonna say, it's zoned.
So it's saying that,
it's
zoned that way, actually, you know, so the recommendation was sort of consistent with the existing underlying zoning.
Okay.
The park requirement, again, it would be about 13,000 square feet here, so we'd probably just take the payment of the fee. We did have a public hearing with a 10-day written comment period. This was in October. We received 1 letter, and it was just the general concerns about yield, some mapping deficiencies, open space preservation, groundwater concerns, and general impacts to the environment. But it was just the 1 letter. We did our referrals, and we received referrals back from the Conservation Board. To be fair to the Conservation Board, they were looking at 7 different maps, and they went into mode. And so, you know, look, I think we don't have any wetlands here, but I think they've outlined, you know, they like to see as much open space preserved, as much as the trees preserved. They would recommend imposing clearing limitations, notwithstanding the fact this is not APOD. They would impose 15% fertilized vegetation limitations. And they prefer, obviously, any plan that has less density. They also recommend common driveways for a number of lots. But again, this plan is going to change so drastically that my guess is the next plan that they get from us will be better for them.
Well, they'll have the benefit of their comments.
100%, yeah. Fire prevention, interestingly, you said there's fire hydrants and water mains in and around the area. Again, once we hone in the design, but if there's going to be erosion here,
They bring
you're
it
going
in.
to put a hydrant in there. That would be the normal course of action. East Quogue Fire District didn't have any specific requirements. They now give out this sheet with general requirements, just general requirements. So I did include them in the back of the report. Sorry I didn't attach it. So they said in their letter to us, we have no specific recommendations for this subdivision. Attached are our general comments and recommendations.
What are those general comments?
Oh, 10-inch water main. It's all the standard, almost like the fire, you know, the width of the clearance width. So they're just whatever general standards that they would send out almost to any subdivision. So we'll give it to the applicant and say designed it according to these recommendations. But I would let them be aware that there is a fire hydrant that's likely going to be located somewhere.
Have they changed the 1,000 feet? Hydrant?
That I don't know. But we have one very close to this property, and there's public water there. But my guess is any new road would have to have one in there. And they get referred. This will be referred 2 other times, by the way, if this was to move forward at the preliminary and final. So what I'm saying here is an updated standard plan needs to be provided, which addresses all those issues that I just stated, what comes in, what comes out. And we will do the legal, and they will do the title research to determine if those abandonments are feasible. I think the planning board's preferred plan is a density incentive plan. The minimum open space requirement, it's not APOD, it's R20, so it would be 25%. We're going to review these concurrently. And so as a general rule, I think that the idea would be to cluster open space on this side and to put your development closer to the development on the other side. That would just be I think it doesn't fully design the subdivision. It gives us plenty of wiggle room to look at it and move
keep the
things. But as
houses where
a
the
general, I think that that's accurate, is we want to make sure the open space stays next to the open space and we put the development
Right, and
next
it's
to the
not
development.
fragmented,
And it's
yeah.
not fragmented. And of course, buffers along the railroad and buffers along Old Country Road as well. I think those would be the standard. Interestingly, the conservation recommends 30-foot wide easements along the road. I think my report says 50 feet along Old Country Road, so.
What's the setback from the Long Island Railroad tracks?
None. It would just be whatever the rear yard or whatever that yard would be, most
There's
likely.
no
rear yard would be.
requirement?
No requirements. We typically try to put buffers back there just to, but there's no code setback requirements. If that's a property line, it will be a setback from that property line, whatever that rear yard
I
setback
think their
is.
right of way, I think, is 100 feet.
It is.
That's, I was at, yeah.
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 So they're from the track 100 feet?
No,
the full width
the
of
full
it.
width,
The
and I
full
think they
width.
try to center the track in the center of the
In
right
the
of way,
100
although,
feet,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure it's perfect, but, right.
So number 3, again, that was the 50-foot wide natural buffer along the railroad tracks and Old Country Road. Number 4, I just highlighted this, per the Conservation Board and given the high-quality pitch pine oak forest that covers this. I mean, this is a wooded site. I think clearance restrictions should be imposed on the lots, which will go into number 5, which would impose a 15% limitation on the fertilized vegetation. And I will say for the record that Randy did point out in his letter to us that this isn't an APOD, so they raised that question, but he's also aware that that's the recommendation that I'm going to make in the report regardless.
But when you impose that restriction on individual homeowners, it's kind of tough to monitor and enforce, isn't it?
The way I look at it though, and if I may, we have the APOD, right? And so we do monitor it, right? We impose the clearing restriction, we do it. This is not an APOD, so it does become harder. That being said, I'm looking at cumulative impacts on East Quad right now. And so what I'm seeing is we've got the developable properties. We keep saying there's not a lot out there. Well, there's enough out there. And so the goal, I think, would be to try to, with groundwater impacts and everything, and this will all come out of the SECRA review, this is going to be subject to SECRA, would be to try to keep up as much of the vegetation as possible. I don't think we have to be, you don't have to tell them, you're going to get 10% clearing, but we could come up with something based on the lot size of the property. My guess is they would all be allowed 50-60% if it was APOD based on the size of the properties.
Anthony, we did this at Shinnecock Hills. It's not an APOD, but we imposed the clearing restrictions as if it were APOD.
Yep.
And this clearing, this is only for fertilized vegetation area, not, that excludes your house footprint, your driveway,
Right.
and whatever else you have.
Yeah.
So it's really only for.
It's hard to monitor, but,
Yeah.
put it there.
No, I mean, it's not like you limited 15% of the lot, it's really.
No, definitely not, just the fertilized vegetation.
area, it's 15%.
So, unless the planning board had any numbers, my guess is, let's see what kind of subdivision design we get back at a preliminary stage before we start saying how much clearing each, because it could be based on, if we're gonna use APOD as a standard, then it should be maybe just based on the size of the property, the way APOD operates, and we don't know what that is yet, so. But I would leave it open for clearing restrictions, in my opinion.
Makes sense.
So that was number 5 too. 6, the DEC didn't provide comments, but the Conservation Board, this is within that long-eared bat habitat, so they may have clearing limitations, seasonal clearing limitations. Number 7, as always, Old Country Road is busy, so Depending on how the subdivision design is, I'd like to put in a general statement, try to maximize common driveways to the maximum extent possible, limits curb cuts, limits clearing. 8, the installation of the on-site water treatment for all new home construction now, and that should be noted on the map. I do put in here the health department, just so you know, the health department density standards for this area, this is groundwater management zone 4, which is 20,000 square feet. So our zoning is consistent with the health department's density requirements. Except that I do note in here that the affordable component may an issue for the health department. The health department, unlike, is just ignoring the affordable housing requirement. They're not doing density incentive, so it could require some sanitary flow credit to get to that point.
And that the town would provide?
We could, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for something like this, I think this would be a good example where we would.
Yeah, I think we've done that.
For sure, for sure. So that's good. Again, I've been doing this as a standard. It's not, actually, this is not CPF priority properties. Jackie Fenlon did reach out to me though. But I will put in a standard comment. We can't require that anybody preserve their property in its entirety, but go talk to the CPF. The town's got some money out there, so why not direct them? Like I said, it worked with Camp Jerome. I don't believe there's any lots coming out of that subdivision now, so. Let's see here, this is an unlisted action, as I said, so they should do a long environmental assessment form. We didn't get any comments from the town engineer on this one, unfortunately. I'm less concerned about it, only because we don't get engineered drawings at a pre-app. That happens in a major subdivision during preliminary. So any comments that we get will become part of the record. They will be forwarded to the applicant, and then, of course, when we get to the preliminary, we'll resend. Any open space would have to be indicated if it was being dedicated, which is preferred. Number 14 is not correct because this is not we're not ready for health department, so ignore that one. But I think what I tried to do here was just give the applicant some general direction on how to design this subdivision based on some macro, universal, is how I
Did
tried.
they pay enough for all your suggestions?
We'll see. They've been very, it's rare that an applicant comes to me with 50 maps and says, just tell us what you want, so. With those little minor changes, or just clarifying those, I think we could adopt this report. Unless the board has other questions, of course.
And Suffolk County Water Authority has enough water that they're pumping along these areas?
Well, like all applications that go to the health department, even though this is done on the applicant, the health department requires a letter of water availability from the water authority. So the applicant will have to provide that to the water authority. And then that's what starts the discussion about water main sizes or expansion if need be. There's water here, but yes, there will be that. Has to come out.
I'm talking about overall impact.
Well, yeah, no question, and that's why I'm sort of taking this position.
Yes, I think it's great.
So with that, I think with that report, ready for adoption.
I'll make a motion.
And is 2 the same?
I'm going to do the second one separate, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay, so,
But he's not going to say much.
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second by
Well, it doesn't matter.
George, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
So the only big difference between Coastal Vision 1 and 2 is the size of the property and the number of the lots. So what I will say in this case is,
This is the larger of the two.
this is the larger of the two. So the question was really between 11 and 10 lots perhaps. So in this case, I think they probably have a yield of 10 lots, which would then give them an 11th lot for affordable. So you're looking at maybe 7 and 11.
They don't get 2?
What's that?
They don't get 2 additional lots?
If the yield is 10, they only get a 10% increase in the yield, so they get one extra lot.
If it's 11, then they get 2? Well, I mean,
No, we don't round up.
I don't think you don't round up, it's always
I'm just
interesting
happy
where
I
and when,
didn't
I don't
know.
believe you do
Yeah.
actually, so. So aside from that, and the other with this one is, and I don't think it's really an issue, this one, again, the road abandonment, but they show here, Central Avenue or Central Boulevard, depending on which map you look at. It actually doesn't show up on our GIS at all. It's really strange. However, that being said, there's clearly access coming through Central Avenue. So what I said in this particular report was, and again, we'll do what research we have on our end with maps, that the applicant will need to show that that this road exists, that they have rights to it, because that could affect the yield on the property as well. And we just don't have that information, so I put that.
Is that going over the railroad tracks?
Yeah, well, it's sort of, it's skewed. Yeah, but you can see here, we don't even show the road here.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat skewed, but there is something that's coming over the railroad tracks here. Which is not probably ideal, but, I know we had that discussion on some other,
Is that could just be like a thing that dirt bikes and so on use right now for riding, right?
Yep.
You can-
So I left that as a question there, which is good, but the recommendations are all the same. Is basically, take the two properties, let's figure out our yield using the methods that I said, and then let's cluster to one side and preserve the other side. That's basically what this report says.
So Anthony, a question on affordable housing.
Sure.
The affordable housing legislation that was passed by this town some years ago was patterned on the New York State affordable housing legislation.
It was mandated by the state. You have to go and do this stuff, yeah, basically.
Yes, but, I mean, the town didn't change anything from the state. They could have, but they didn't. I remember
The only
this
thing they
board
did
reviewed
change
it.
is they do have something, there was something that was changed. The way that the regulation was written was the decrease in density. What happened was people would take a yield of, let's say, 20 lots, reduce it by 19, reduce it by 1 to 19, and say, look, I'm out of. And that was, as Jeff Murphy said, a giant loophole that you could drive a Mack truck through.
Huge.
Right.
So that's what he said. And so the town eliminated that. The only way to get out of the affordable housing requirement is that you have to go below the threshold, which is less than 5 lots. So if you do 4 lot subdivision, you're not subject to it then. And if you decrease it, you gotta decrease it to 4, if you wanna get out of it.
So it's been amended?
Yeah.
The legislation has been amended?
To our, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Plethora of information. But I would recommend adopting this one as well.
I know this
Okay.
isn't a planning thing, but is that affordable in perpetuity?
Oh, that is a planning issue, because it's, that issue.
Yeah, everything
Go to
else-
Southold, and you could go to Mattituck, and the affordable housing that they did in 1990
It's
was
not.
never perpetual.
It's
All those
not.
people got the benefit of affordable housing and the benefit of the equity that
Big
went with
equity.
it.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
So these would be perpetual.
Motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by
Second.
Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Number 13. Bartlett Tree Experts, we did the pre-submission on this one. You can see here, I have the aerial up here.
It's that funny little place, right?
What's that?
It's that funny little.
Yeah, it's that funny
oh.
piece right on North Sea Road there. And so they submitted, they're doing the two little trailers up on the, just north of the parking lot. The application's incomplete though. They needed a bunch of engineering stuff, and I want the clearing on here because they got good buffers. So let's see what the buffers are, but it's incomplete.
Okay.
16, which is Donato.
What about 12?
Oh,
We need a
Yeah,
motion.
motion, I'm sorry. Motion to deem Bartlett incomplete.
Second.
Motion by, who made the motion?
I
Craig.
thought- I
Craig. Motion by Craig, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
11 and 12 were off the agenda.
What about 8?
11 and
8, I
12
think,
are
was
off.
also off the agenda. So my next one then would be 16, Donato.
7, 8 is off. We did 7.
And then number
So your next one is what? Anthony?
16.
40, page 40, Donato.
Number 16, yeah.
It's just to do an extension and a waiver of the pre-application policy. This is a 2-lot subdivision, Bay Avenue West. As you can see here, it'll be 1 lot in the front with the existing and flag lot in the back. They got really caught up in the health department and during the pandemic and everything. So it's a little retro, so they're just looking for the extension of the pre-app. It would bring it to May 23rd, 2023. And then after that, they would have to start over.
So May 23rd, 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Kate, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And then you did my other ones, I think.
And I think you're done, Anthony.
I think that's it.
Looks like you are done. And are you on tonight?
Yeah, we just have the one, that'll be quick.
It will be, right?
Yeah.
From your mouth.
To someone's ears.
Yes.
So Anthony, the NRP, is Janice going to give us that revision or what?
I wasn't here when you had the
I
I
think
think
she
you
was just
already
gonna-
adopted it, she's gonna give you the, just send you the reformatted one.
She'll send it to us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we
great.
adopted it.
You
right?
adopted
Just
it.
We
amended
adopted it.
Because it was
Right.
just
She's just gonna
formatted.
reorganize the language.
Can you motion to close the meeting? Carrie's got to get to the...
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by George, second
Second.
by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. We are adjourned.